Hey everybody, what's going on? It's Wednesday. It's April 1st.
Yeah, this is the day of fools.
April Fool's Day.
You a fool for being here.
Although
Just kidding.
I kind of forget about it.
Yeah,
It's not really
I just
a thing.
remember
because I think pranks are dumb. So it was nothing I was.
The
ever...
show really is about the wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald. It's not an April Fool's
Yeah,
joke.
it's not an April Fool's joke. Actually, I was just telling Tom. I said I didn't grow up around the Great Lakes. If you did, like, this is part of your history. They still talk about it today. I grew up in Florida, obviously. So it's like, I actually first heard of it when I was a kid from the song, the Gordon Lightfoot song, The Wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald.
Yeah.
And because even from a very young age, I was fascinated by anything kind of spooky or haunting or about death, the song, like, really, I was like, oh, that's
It's a macabre song.
It's so creepy. And it's just like, and just thinking about it, like, because I'm like really creeped out, like in a good way, I guess, about like ghost ships and like maritime kind of stuff. Even though I know jack shit about. I grew up on the ocean, but I don't do boats.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
Great Lakes it's fresh water, but it's huge. It has bad weather on it. It's like being in the ocean.
Yeah,
it's huge. And there are huge sea monsters in there. There are giant sturgeon in there that you go, damn, a freshwater fish could get that big. They're fucking huge. And it can get very dangerous out there. And it was around where all the steel mills were, and the fucking Detroit. You know, all of its raw materials. A lot of them were coming across the Great Lakes, and it's pretty up there, but it's dangerous, cold.
Yeah.
And a lot of guys have died there, and it's a very special kind of seaman that works on those Great Lakes because they're not in the ocean. They're in the fresh water, but it's just as dangerous, if not maybe more dangerous than the ocean in some ways.
Yeah,
because of where it is.
You don't fuck with those
hurricane
lakes.
force winds and shit, and they're just
they're no joke.
Very special breed of men that used to work out there, and it's changed a bit. They don't take the same amount of risks that they used to.
You know, happily. So.
But the old school dudes.
A lot of it's because of this.
A lot of it's because of this wreck. Back in the day when this happened, these dudes were going to deliver their cargo no matter what. They're like, oh, hurricane force winds, fuck it, it's going to be on time. They had a lot of professional pride in what they did.
Well, and to be fair, a lot of the captains had been through like horrible weather before, and they'd always made it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's like, oh, well, we'll just make it again. Except that one time when you don't.
These guys were hardcore.
Yeah.
And the song, the Gordon Lightfoot song, it's kind of a folk song, kind of a sea song. So it sounds like they're singing about the sea, you know. And but it's the Great Lakes.
Yeah, it's like a folk song slash sea shanty.
Sea shanty.
I wanted to talk a little bit about the song. Actually, as far as I could determine from all the stuff that I watched, was actually based on an Irish funeral dirge.
Yeah.
Like, that's kind of where some of the, like, the tune or the melody came from.
And it's true. What is it? 39 men died.
29.
29 men died. And fucking ever since this wreck, on the anniversary of that wreck, they'd toll the bell 29 times. And when Gordon Lightfoot died, they changed it to 30.
To 30. Because Gordon Lightfoot died in 2023.
Yeah,
since then they've been doing 30.
Since then they added Gordon because he's a part of the crew. Because that song made this wreck and what happened famous on
like a legend.
A legend, yeah. And it was a national legend, and Gordon Lightfoot is probably famous in other countries too, so it's international too.
Well, he's Canadian, so it's like obviously.
So there you go, international, right?
You know. But like I said, I'm not really sure because I know we have like a lot of people here that are in the UK and stuff and might not be as familiar with it as most Americans are. And the thing about it too, I noticed, is that because last November was the 50th anniversary, a bunch of stuff. So there was like a bunch of documentaries that came out, and there was like a really good one. Part-Time Explorer did one, and the Lore Lodge did a really good one. Like, both of those are super, super deep dives. And then I also saw another one that broke down, like, because one of the mysteries around it, I mean, obviously it's not a mystery, it sank and everybody died, but it's like, no one's entirely sure, like, why it sank exactly. So, so he was kind of going back and forth with, like, all the technical details, because he was, you know, a mariner also, and trying to say, like, what probably happened, even though we'll probably never know. The thing about it now is that for a while, up until the 90s, you could actually dive down to it. That is actually no longer allowed, at least not without a permit, because the 29 men that died are still down there.
Yeah.
And so it is considered a grave site. It's actually in Canadian waters, and it's designated a grave site. So if you go there and disturb it, then you're desecrating a grave, and
They're
you're not
down in
allowed to
Davy
do it.
Jones' locker.
That's so creepy to me. And like, only as far as I'm aware, only one of the diving expeditions in the 90s like saw one body. They don't know who it was, and it was like actually kind of outside of the wreck. But the family has been adamant about not letting anybody see that shit, which I don't blame them, to be honest with you. And like I said, they're not sure who that body was.
They're resting.
So yeah. And that's the thing. And Gramthers points out that there's like thousands of wrecks in the Great Lakes.
Yeah.
I've seen, he said 3,000. I've heard anywhere from 6,000 to 10,000. And I'm not just talking about Lake Superior. I'm talking about all the Great Lakes. And that there might be as many as 30,000 sailors like that were lost. And a lot of them are still down there just because, one, the lake is very cold and it's very deep. And a lot of the times it's not feasible. And I think there's a thing too with sailors that, that's, if they die like that, they just want to be left down there. I mean, because like I said, the Edmund Fitzgerald in particular, the family said we don't want them. Yeah. Even if you found them, like, just
don't bring them up.
Yeah, just leave them where they are.
They're
like,
there with the crew and the ship. That's where they belong.
Yeah, that's where they wanted to stay.
Yeah.
So there's like grave sites all over. So while the Edmund Fitzgerald, I kind of feel like, there were a lot of shipwrecks like this. There were a lot of, I'll mention a couple like toward the end. And this wasn't even like the one with the highest loss of life really, but I kind of feel like just because of the way the ship was, because of the way it happened, because there's still like a mystery about it, and I think mostly because of the song, I think that's kind of the reason why everybody remembers this one, and the other ones are not as remembered. Like, because this one is like, I don't know about all of America, but for sure like in the Midwest and Canada, this is like hugely, everybody learns about it in school and everything like that.
Yeah, the song brought the Great Lakes guys into the mainstream, and especially for that generation. So it brought it to the light, and then that kind of ended up changing the culture. They're like, man, we got to stop these dudes from killing themselves, because in a way, this didn't have to happen. They could have, fucking not gone out into the lakes that day with that weather coming. They knew it was coming. They could have delayed it. Nobody would have died. It wasn't in wartime. It wasn't material that had to be there.
Yeah, it's just like stuff.
They could have just waited for the storm to blow over. But no, they were going to deliver it on time. That's just how they were.
Well, I will note that, in their defense, that the storm actually did change course slightly. The ships are made to withstand very bad weather, and as a matter of fact, the night that the Edmund Fitzgerald went down, there were other ships, like, you know what I mean, and like they all made it. That was the only one that did it, and the weather was horrible. They said it was like the worst that they'd ever seen, like a hurricane.
Yeah, hurricane force winds. There's almost 100-mile-an-hour winds.
They did know that a storm was coming, but they didn't think. They thought it was going to go like a little bit past Superior, and that they would be all right. And then by the time they already kind of started, the weather service was like, oh shit, like it changed course. Now it's going to come right over top of you.
Yeah.
So, so they, and the thing about it is that I think even when this happened in 1975, by the way, I think there was a little bit, I'm not going to say that they blamed the crew at first. Well, I'll get into that. It's like, it's a little bit low key, but I will say from everything that I've read and watched about this, it seems like the crew did everything that they were supposed to do, like the right way. They were all other than the one cadet that was on there that was, that was part of his training because he was in the academy. They tended to be all older dudes. There were a couple that were in their 20s, but most of them in their 50s.
They didn't do anything wrong. They
didn't do anything wrong.
It's like anything else. Just like in the Army, you can do everything right. You can still get hit without an artillery round. They're just, that's just the way war is. They were at sea. They were in this huge fucking Great Lakes. It had 100-mile-an-hour winds and huge ice-cold waves, and they were carrying a heavy load. These little round balls of clay and iron ore.
And iron ore, yeah. Taconite is what they're
Taconite,
called.
they were just filled with it. They were riding low in the water, waves going over the deck and shit, tearing shit off the ship.
Man.
Busting windows out. It was taking water. There was just...
Like I said, no thank you.
Nothing you could do.
You could not pay me enough to get out there and not fucking...
Whole ship was flexing. Whole ship was flexing, popping paint off the walls inside.
And the thing about it, I think it was the Part-Time Explorer thing that I watched on YouTube, which is excellent, by the way. It's like almost 2 hours long, and it goes way in depth into everything. And the coolest thing about it is that they did very good 3D modeling of the ship and what happened and like what it probably looked like if you were on the ship or if you were on the other ship that was out there like watching it. And that really kind of brings it home, like how fucked up this weather was. Like there was one point in there where the other ship that was out there, which I'll get into, which was called the Arthur M. Anderson, and there was one stage where this wave came over it and the whole ship like essentially went under fucking water.
Yeah.
Like, and then, like, it kind of bobbed back. Like I said, to an extent, the ships are made to deal with that. But I think it was just kind of like a series of unfortunate incidents that led to the Edmund Fitzgerald sinking. Because, like I said, there was another ship out there of comparable size. I think it was slightly smaller. But it made it.
Given enough time and enough water, eventually water will win.
Yeah.
My dad used to take me out on these fucking fishing expeditions and shit off the fucking coast of California and down in the Gulf of Mexico when I was a little kid. And sometimes we get caught in these storms going out to these fishing barges that they had. And man, they're fucking big 30-foot waves, ship going. I'm getting sick as hell, fucking throwing up. I'm fucking like 11.
Yeah, no
getting sick as hell. Why you take me out here?
I
didn't say that. I didn't want to show my weakness. But I'm like, why are you taking me out of this shit? I fucking hated it. But that was it. I hate the ocean. I hate the sea. I hate water.
Yeah.
I hate that shit. Because I know it's dangerous.
Oh, yeah, big time.
And fucking, after you're out there for a few hours, even on relatively kind of calm seas, you'll eventually get seasick. You know, I get seasick. Yeah, evidently you get past it. But it's just a bad feeling. Constant fucking moving. You know, I don't like it.
Yeah.
And fucking, if anything goes wrong, you're
fucked.
You're fucked.
Pretty much.
You're like in the desert, but there's no land.
And there's sharks, probably.
Sharks, yeah. There's no water. No water you can drink. Sun beating down on you. There's just too much shit that can go wrong.
Yeah, I've seen too many episodes of I Shouldn't Be Alive. Like, people thought, well, wouldn't it be fun to sail around the world?
No.
Spoiler alert, it was not fun.
No.
They hit a rock somewhere and they were out in the ocean for like fucking... You know what I mean?
Get yourself killed.
Yeah, no thank you. It's like there's just no reason.
Yeah.
Like, I'm glad some people do it because I know it's necessary at some stage, but it's like, I just don't
That's
want
for them, though. That's like,
I don't want it to be me.
No, fuck that.
It's just kind of like mountain climbing. If you want to do that and you think it's fun, cool, but I'm not doing that shit.
I'm not even going on one of those pleasure cruises. Fuck that.
Yeah, I don't even really want to go on a cruise ship. They can sink too, you know.
Yeah. They have sunk, but they they don't go all the way down to the bottom, though.
Yeah.
They don't seem to go down to the bottom. I'm not sure if they can sink that much. But I've seen them listing over on the side.
I kind of feel like some of them have sank before, but yeah, it's usually like slower. The thing about this one is that it was so fast because, like Ben said, what's the bet they didn't have adequate ship's boats and life jackets? They had all that stuff, but the problem was that whatever happened so quickly
they didn't have a chance.
that nobody had time to do anything.
It disappeared immediately.
Yeah, it was just like, and it was gone.
They just don't know why.
Yeah. Like, I have my own theories about it. Like I said, I'm obviously not a structural engineer or a mariner or anything like that, but it's just like listening to other people talk about it and reading the official reports. There were like 3 official reports that came out, like people that had gone down to the dive site and everything like that. And I kind of feel like the most likely scenario.
We'll get there.
Like,
we'll get there.
Which we'll get to.
Yeah.
But, you know what I mean?
By the way it hit the bottom, I think I know what happened.
Yeah.
And there was a bunch of shit that led up to it. It wasn't one thing. It was 4 or 5 things happening at once.
Yeah, it was because there was damage to the ship like before that, which weakened it, I'm sure. But like I said, had this one thing happen toward the end, it probably would have made it. I don't think it would have made it all the way. It was going to Detroit.
Stuff happened to it, and then this final thing happened to it, and it set it over the edge.
Yeah, I think that was probably what it was. Probably what it was. So I kind of feel like we've kind of covered.
Yeah.
Like I said, I think I kind of first got fascinated by this by the song, which came out when I was a kid. The song came out actually not too long after the tragedy happened, and this I heard this is kind of a cool story about the song. I guess it's true. They talked about it on the Lore Lodge, and he said that he got this info from a book about the tragedy, which is called "The Gales of November," which is a line from the song. And he said that Gordon Lightfoot had actually been working on a song that was based on an Irish funeral dirge, and he was kind of fucking with it, and he wasn't really happy with it or whatever. And then when this happened, and he was Canadian, and he kind of grew up around the Great Lakes, so he was familiar with the area. And when this happened, he wanted to kind of memorialize it, and he thought he would use that tune. And so the crazy thing is he's in the studio, like, with his band. And the band members had, like, heard him kind of practicing the song or, you know, farting around with it and stuff like that. And they thought, oh, that's kind of nice. But they'd never played on it or anything like that. And so they finished all the recording they were supposed to do. And they were like, well, why don't you record that song, you know, that you've been playing all the time? And he was like, it's, you know, it's not really finished, or I'm not really happy with it or whatever. And the producer's like, well, you know, you still got like a day or a day and a half in the studio, so why not? Just, you know, just see how it comes out. You got time. So he was like, okay. And then what?
Ben says, a Marine who gets seasick? Don't you ever accuse me of being a Marine. I'm straight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But,
Marine.
Yeah, he was in the Army.
I was in the Army. I was in the Army Air Force.
Yeah, don't ever cut.
They
get very offended by being called Marines.
I'm straight. Okay.
But yeah, so Gordon Lightfoot and his band had never played this song together before, and in fact, the drummer I don't think had ever even heard it before. And he was like, "Well, what do you want me to do? Like, when do you want me to come in?" And Gordon said, "Well, I'll wave my hand at you when I want you to start playing." So they played it, and that version is the version that was released. The version that you hear on the record, the version that you hear on the radio or Spotify or whatever, that was the first time they had all ever played that song together. That was the first take, and they kept it. And I thought that was so fucking cool. It's such a great song. But I heard that when I was little, and when I was a kid, I loved creepy shit.
Yeah, Zach, you'd like that song, man, if you haven't heard it.
So yeah, I mean, if you've never heard it, I feel like it's ubiquitous.
Yeah.
But I was watching, like, Simon Whistler did a video about this, and he had never heard the song either. And I was like, I thought kind of everybody knew that song, but maybe it's more an American-Canadian thing. You know what I mean? It was a big hit here, like, back in the 70s. But, you know, maybe younger people haven't heard it, I guess. But there's, like, a million covers of it on YouTube. Because, like I said, it's just such a spooky...
For Men of the Sea...
It's a spooky song.
It's that particular song. It's like a wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald. For Army guys, infantry soldiers and shit, Warren Zevon's Roland the Headless Thompson Gunner.
That's also
they're real similar. Real similar.
Oracle says, a friend of my husband's was one of the first reporters to file a story on the Edmund Fitzgerald, and that isn't even the most interesting thing to happen to her. Yeah, I kind of feel like, man, like I said, this was such a huge deal. But it was like mostly regional news at first, but then Newsweek picked it up and wrote like kind of a short-ish, and by that time, like, all the details weren't known, like they didn't know exactly what happened. And they were still, I think they were even still searching for survivors, which, you know, obviously they never found. But so that kind of made it national. But then, like I said, Gordon Lightfoot read that article and then wrote the song. And the song is actually, the lyrics of the song, they're very poetic, obviously. But they're pretty accurate, like, to what actually happened. He did change a couple of things later, like when new information came in. But the one that's, you know, the iconic song is actually, like, pretty... you know, it's pretty accurate to what really happened. But like I said, with a little bit of poetic license taken. So yeah, like I said, in case you don't know, or if you're not from the United States, the Great Lakes, even though they're called lakes, and when you think lakes, just like, oh, like my lake house, like you can swim across it or whatever. No, these are not that. The Great Lakes are actually inland seas more like. They're called lakes because they're freshwater, obviously. And out of those, Lake Superior, where the Edmund Fitzgerald sank, is the largest. And actually, Lake Superior is the largest freshwater lake in the world by surface area. Not by volume. It's actually the third by volume because it's not as deep as some other ones. But by surface area, it is the largest. It is 31,700 square miles, 350 miles long, 160 miles wide, and a maximum depth of 1,332 feet.
And evidently there are sturgeon in there big enough to swallow a man whole.
I don't doubt it.
That's amazing. That's a big-ass freshwater fish.
So it's a massive, massive body of water. And because of where it's located, it has weather that, if it was in the ocean, would be called a hurricane. They don't call it a hurricane because it's inland, I guess, or because it's over a lake. But I think just because of the way that it's, there's cold water, it's a little bit warmer, and it's a whole meteorological thing that happens. But particularly in the month of November, that seems to be when most of the wrecks happen because the weather deteriorates quite drastically. And they have horrible, horrible storms, gale force winds, huge waves, and it's pretty fucked up. So for that reason, the shipping lanes, like going back a long way, generally the last run of the season would be in November, and then they would, hang it up until spring. Like, and the boats would go into dock, and like they would do all the repairs and maintenance and stuff like that over the winter because you couldn't go. It was just too dangerous. And as a matter of fact, when the Edmund Fitzgerald sank, this was its last run of the season. This was its last delivery, and it was going into dock afterward. But obviously, it didn't make it, sadly. So let's talk a little bit about the ship itself. And like I said, I think another reason why this was so, why this shipwreck is so remembered, other than the song, which I think is the main reason. But I think the thing about the Edmund Fitzgerald was that it was a first in a lot of ways. Yes, there'd been like a lot of shipping freighters in the Great Lakes. It was a very common shipping route, particularly for steel mills and things like that. But it was one that was for a long time. It was the largest one. And it won like a lot of like awards for safety. It was like super comfortable. There was like all this other kind of stuff about it that made it like, iconic or like better than some of the other ones. It was faster. And interestingly, like when it was first, when they first like put it out into the water or whatever, like people would come out to see it. You know what I mean? Like they come out to the docks like to see it leave, and when it was going through the locks, like people would come and see it and like wave to the people and all this other kind of stuff. Like they did that with a lot of the boats, but I think the Edmund Fitzgerald was kind of iconic, like even at the time. So it was actually first conceived as kind of like the flagship vessel for this company called the Northwestern Mutual Life Insurance Company, which is in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And so they decided they were going to get into the shipping business, even though it was an insurance company. And so they commissioned this other company to make this big ass boat. And they wanted it to be maximum sized. So for that reason, the Edmund Fitzgerald is the biggest size you could make it at the time, and it would still fit through the locks, like the Soo locks, where it would go like for the St. Lawrence waterway. So when it was going through the waterway, it literally had like 5 feet of clearance, maybe. You know what I mean? They made it like as big as they could make it and still fit. You know what I mean? So they launched the ship in 1958, and it was named after Edmund Fitzgerald, obviously, who at the time was the president of Northwestern Mutual, which is the insurance company that paid for it. And it cost at the time, in the 50s, it was $7 million, which is about $60 million in today's money. Now, interestingly, when they were christening the ship, you know how they do the christening ship with you smash the bottle of champagne on it or whatever. So Edmund Fitzgerald's wife did the honors, and she had the champagne bottle. Interestingly, she had to hit the ship 3 times before it broke, which some said, well, that's considered kind of a bad omen.
Yeah.
Like, considering what happened to it later, like in hindsight, they're kind of like, that's a little weird. Also, when they were doing the christening, and there is footage of this because, like I said, it was kind of a famous ship because it was so large and all this other kind of stuff. So there's footage of it, and they kind of put it out into the water for the first time. And there are all these tourists there going, woo, you know, it was all this big exciting thing. And they couldn't get, I can't remember what the things are called where they, like, you know, disengage it from the dock or whatever. The ship, and it's fucking huge, right? And it's this huge ship, and it goes push like into the water like that, which it wasn't really supposed to do. Like, it was supposed to just kind of go shee, like nice, and it did. It was like whoosh, and like all this fuck came up, and it like hit a dock and kind of broke it, and all this other kind of shit. And this dude that was watching literally had a heart attack and died.
It scared the shit out of him.
It scared the shit out of him because this huge boat was like kind of out of control for a minute, like when they first released it like into the water. So again, a little bit of a bad omen.
Weird.
I don't think that has anything to do with anything. I'm not superstitious. But it's just kind of knowing what happened to it years later. It's just kind of interesting that a dude like legit died like the first time they put it in the water. Like because it scared him so badly, I guess. And like I said, there is footage of it. If you watch like a documentary, there's very clear footage of it just going, and there's like this huge wave comes up and everybody's like, whoa, you know what I mean? And then it broke a dock. You can't really see that. But people said that later on. So I thought that was kind of interesting. So this ship, like I said, very large for the time. Obviously, they made bigger ones later, but this was the biggest one when it was first commissioned. 729 feet long with a 75-foot beam. I think that's width. And 25-foot draft. And it could carry about 26,000 long tons. Now, it was kind of like, if you've ever seen pictures of it, it looks like a pretty standard, like, shipping freighter. It's, there was like a galley and crew quarters and stuff like that on one end, and it was kind of up here like that. Like, and then on this end is kind of, you know, where the engine room and everything like that. And then in the middle, it's kind of like just this long, flat, like, cargo hold. And there's all these, like, little hatches, kind of. Like, I think there's 21 of them. And they would all open up, and it would pull up to, you know, like a place where a train could come and, like, dump all the iron ore, like, into the cargo hold. Now, interestingly, and some people kind of criticize this design in the wake of the accident, because this might have had something to do with why it sank so quickly, is that technically it had 3 cargo holds, like one right next to the other. But in between them was only, I think normally they would put like a bulkhead like in between. So it's like, so they were separate. You know what I mean? This didn't really have that. I think it just kind of had a screen type of situation. So effectively it was just one big cargo hold, which you can see would kind of be a problem. Like if water started to get in there, which like I said, was something I think after this tragedy, I think they kind of stopped making them that way, from my understanding, just because they thought that might have contributed in some way. So, top speed of it, like I said, it was kind of a bit faster than some of the other ones, about 14, 15 knots. And so basically it was actually coal-fired at first, but was converted to oil in the late 60s, I think it was, 1969, something around there. Or actually, no, early 70s it was. And one interesting thing, and you didn't really see this on a lot of these kind of freighter-type ships, was the inside of it, like the crew quarters and everything like that, were actually, like, pretty fucking nice. It wasn't, like, nowadays, like, luxury or anything, but considering that normally, like, freighters would just have, like, very workman-like crew quarters and galley and stuff like that, this one was actually pretty deluxe. All the cabins and stuff like that had like carpet, and all the bathrooms were tiled. It had air conditioning. It had drapes and leather sofas, and it was like pretty nice. Like I saw pictures of it, and they would actually take passengers sometimes. Usually it'd be like, you know, company guys like the Northwestern, the insurance company that owned the boat. You know, sometimes their executives would like go somewhere on the ship, and they had really like 3 dining rooms and these big long dining tables, and like sometimes some of the corporate guys like wives would come in and like make Thanksgiving dinner for everybody, and it looked pretty fancy, like especially for like a freighter ship. So apparently like people that worked on the boat thought it was like a real nice place to work because it had like nice living conditions, because sometimes you were on it for a while, you know what I mean? And it was just like, had pretty nice like cabins and whatnot. And also had a really big like restaurant style like galley, you know what I mean? So they made like really nice food in there.
So the ship was laid out. It was like a hotel.
Like I said, it was like pretty fancy. Like I said, it's not like nowadays like luxury cruise ship or anything like that. But for a freighter,
for the time, yeah.
And for the time, like it was built in the late 1950s. Like I was looking, I was like, that looks pretty sweet. To be honest with you, like it had nice furniture and, like I said, carpeting and everything. You didn't usually see that. So, yeah, and it earned a bunch of nicknames over the years. Most popular one probably being the Mighty Fitz. I have seen it called the Fitz also. They also called it the Toledo Express. I've also seen it called Queen of the Lakes. I've also seen a couple of other ships called that. But, because like I said, after she broke a bunch of records in her first years of service, but then like eventually like they started building bigger, faster ones and shit like that. So I think mainly it might have carried some other things sometimes. But mainly, as we mentioned, its main cargo was taconite pellets, which are these little, it's basically like raw iron ore, like mixed with a little bit of clay, just like these little balls. And they would carry that in the cargo holds, and they would take that from Duluth or Superior in Michigan, and they would take it to Detroit in Michigan or Toledo, Ohio, like to where the factories were, like from the mines to the factories. So that's essentially what they were doing. Now, it actually set cargo records on 6 different occasions, carrying in 1969 27,402 long tons. And in 1969, it got a safety award for 8 consecutive years without an injury. So, pretty good, you know what I mean? So like I said, it was winning awards all over the place, breaking records, shit like that. Now, as with many of the freighters on the Great Lakes, it did have a little incident now and again, you know what I mean? Especially because it was considering how big it was. It did actually a little bit, collide with another ship in 1969. No big deal, or 1970, no big deal, though, like no major damage. As I said, because it really didn't have much clearance when it was going through the locks, it actually did hit the lock walls on 3 different occasions. 1970, 1973, and 1974. Not surprising, like I said, she didn't really have much room to maneuver in there. And it lost its original bow anchor in the Detroit River in 1974. They actually found this bow anchor in 1992 and pulled it up, and it is now displayed at the Dawson Great Lakes Museum on Belle Island, Detroit. It's like out front, which I thought was kind of cool. And this was like, a few years before the tragedy happened. They're like, whoops, our thing fell off. They got another one, obviously. You know what I mean? Now, so none of these little mishaps were structurally catastrophic, obviously. Like I said, these ships are behemoths. They're built to take a beating, so they can withstand a little bit of that. You know what I mean? So nothing was a big deal. Ship was repaired, and they go back to service. And the ship actually, it operated from 1958 to its sinking in 1975, so 17 years, with no major problems. So, in 1975, when the disaster happened, the captain was Ernest M. McSorley. He was actually the 4th captain of the ship. And I believe that he was nearing retirement. He had been a ship captain for about 40 years. And the sad thing about it was, I believe his wife had cancer, and he wanted to kind of retire and take care of her and spend time with her and stuff like that. And I think this was going to be, I don't know, because it's like, I don't want it to be like super cliche. It's like, oh, he was 2 days from retirement, but I think this was his last season. Like, he was going to retire and be with his sick wife, you know what I mean? But obviously, sadly, that did not happen. And the thing about McSorley, everybody seemed to say, like, he was like a solid dude. Everybody said he was just like very professional. He knew his shit. Like I said, he'd been a captain. He was actually, for a time, one of the youngest captains like in the fleet. Like, he really had his shit together, which is another reason why I think it was a little bit unfair, like, after the shit happened, that it's like, oh, well, they must have messed up, or the crew messed up, or something like that. I don't think anybody messed up. I think everybody just did everything the way... It was just bad circumstances. So, yeah. Now, the ship was inspected in October of 1975, only about a month before the sinking. And all the inspection found was minor hatch damage. And they said, yeah, you're fine. It's not affecting the seaworthiness. You can just go on your last couple runs. Because like I said, usually November was the last ones because the weather would get too shitty. So after that, your boat would dock and they'd fix everything like over the winter. So this was going to be its last run of the season. And they just said, you know, it's no biggie. Just like go on with that. And like I said, I don't really think that contributed to any great degree to what happened. But, you know, we'll kind of get into that later. Now, I will note, though, that over the years, I think when they first built the ship, because obviously they have a limit to how much shit you can put in the cargo hold, because you don't want the ship riding too low in the water, right? Over the years, I believe the limit was raised like 3 times to let the ship like carry more stuff. And I'm not sure that was the right decision, because I think that might have also been a small contributor to what happened. But, you know, at the time they just thought, oh, it'll be fine. You know, it can carry more weight. It's no problem. I don't think that was the only contributing factor, but I think it might have been. You know, right? No, I still got a lot, actually. I'm all right. So, yeah, but according to the powers that be, they thought it was okay to raise the weight limit, that it could carry more stuff. And like I said, I kind of feel like that might have been a small contributor to what ended up happening. Gramther says, true fact, most of the freighters on the Great Lakes now are foreign vessels picking up wheat and other grains from Midwestern states for markets in Europe and Asia. Yeah, it's like there's still like a bunch of... Matter of fact, I think the Arthur M. Anderson, which was the other ship, which we'll get into, like that was on the sea on the lake the same night. I don't think it's still in commission, but it's for sure like still around. It was in commission for like a long time after it happened. Ben says, I love the Shining cup. Oh, thank you. Yeah, I got that. So I've had legit 2 people ask me if it was Jesus. I guess because they just saw like that and they were just like, motif. No, I was like, no, it's the Shining. It's the twins. Sisters. They're not twins technically. They're sisters. Yeah, because one of them's 8 and one of them's 10. They said. So you can't be twins. That'd be pretty weird to have. Like,
they look exactly the same age in the movie, though. Don't they?
They do, yeah. I think that's why everybody says that. But it's like I hate to be that guy, but it's just kind of like. Actually,
you were that guy. You were that.
I know. I'm admitting it.
Actually,
I was that guy. Yeah. Actually, they're not twins. Yeah. They're 2 years apart. Yeah. You know what I mean? Gramther says the town Tom and Gramther went to high school was a big Great Lakes shipbuilding town back in the day. Yeah, I feel like it's huge in this area. Probably not as much now, but like I feel like back in the 70s, well, you know, going back to the Industrial Revolution or whatever, it was hugely important because you needed iron ore to make steel, to make like lots of shit.
I'll go on about the history of the South, but fucking me and Gramters, when I was young, being Southern, I'm a fucking my flag's the Southern flag, but yeah, Michigan, the downriver area. Very important to fucking American history, boy. That's where it was the Motor City. That's where fucking all the cars were coming from.
That's where the factories were.
All the factories were there, and that's
Midwest and like up in the Northeast. Also.
That's really where the U.S. Army's victory in Europe came from all those tanks being produced up there and all those armored vehicles and shit. Just very important. And Michiganders are a tough people. They're a bunch of Slavic style Nordic people. That's where they came from.
Weather's no joke either.
What's that? The weather's no joke. Yeah. But they all a lot of Czechoslovakian, Polish, and Swedish immigrants is what drove that whole state. And the mentality, the very normie conformist mentality of them. Fucking Gramters will tell you all about it. We used to goof on it when we were in high school. How they're very collectivist. They're big into unions and almost communist in a way, an American version of a communist. They're a trip people. Good looking girls.
Yeah, Gramters just said that.
What do you say?
Our women are hot as fuck.
Oh yeah. Good looking girls up there.
Everybody says that about where they live, though.
Nah, there are some places they got some fucking homely girls. But it's like, no, Michigan had good-looking girls.
There's homely people everywhere.
Yeah, Michigan had good-looking girls.
Mango says, a friend of mine is an engineer on an oil tanker, can spend up to 8 months on them. The quarters are pretty comfortable, and the food is amazing. Pays very well, too. Yeah, I mean, it would suck to be, but I mean, if you were single or, you know, your family didn't care if you were gone that long, I mean, it's probably decent money. I mean, it's hard work, I'm sure, but you know what I mean? Gramther says there is a recreation of the Captain's Bridge at the Dawson Great Lakes Museum on Belle Isle, Detroit. Put on must-see list when y'all come visit the Northland. Yeah, like, if I ever came up there to visit, I would want to see all the shit. Because for some reason, like, even though I'm not a big boat person, and I'm fascinated by, like, maritime history and ghost ships and shit like that. Like, I don't know why. Like I said, I got super, super into this. I was just, like, watching all kind of stuff and reading all kind of stuff and, like, reading the report about the wreck and everything like that. It was just, like, I got super into it. I was, like, re-listening to the song again and shit like that. It's like, it was crazy. I don't know why.
Yeah, we can't play it. They give us a strike for that.
I know, but there's, it's all over YouTube. Like, obviously, there's covers of it. I saw, like, a fuck ton, especially, like, death metal. There's a lot of death metal covers for some reason. I mean, I guess I can see why. Cause
Zach's into retro music. He's got his fucking record player and everything. I recommend that song to you, Zach. You'd like that one.
Yeah, it's 70s folk.
70s folk.
You probably dig it. And like I said, I like spooky shit.
Spooky music of the fucking sea. Dude's dying. Saying, nice to know you. Fucking, you'll understand when you're fucking...
Yeah, it's like, like I said, I hadn't heard that song in a long time. And then I was like listening to it again before... Like a couple days before the show, and I was like, "Man,
tells how they went out, how they died, spooky this song was. And then what happened after they died. You know how everybody thought about it. Yeah,
it just creeps me out that they're also under there. Oh, someone else that did a video about this, which was cool. If you ever seen Ask a Mortician, Caitlin Doherty, I think her name is. She's adorable. I love her, and she was specifically talking about the bodies, and like she talked about the wreck too, but like she's talking about the bodies, why they weren't brought up, and stuff like that, because she's a mortician, obviously, so she's going to talk about that kind of stuff. And she actually went to the Great Lakes, and she had a friend there with her whose relative, great uncle, I want to say, was on the Edmund Fitzgerald. Like, he died on it. And so she was talking to him about that, and she went out in a kayak, and there's parts of the lake where you can go and see shipwrecks that, you know, were just ships that I think that were just scuttled, that, you know, people didn't die or anything like that, but they're like pretty close to the shore, like pretty close to the surface. And so like on a day when the lake isn't choppy, you can actually see like wrecks and shit like right under the surface, which I thought. And she was talking about, she's like, for some reason, like having all those ships and stuff like that, like right underneath you is like kind of freaks her out. And it's like, yeah, I get that. Because it was like right there. Yeah. Like, it was just a shipwreck. Like, you couldn't see it that good because the water was choppy when she was there.
Yeah, but spooky.
But it's, like, spooky. Like I said, and I think a lot of people have that. You can't really put your finger on why it's spooky. It just is. I guess just because the sea, you know, this is a lake, obviously, but the sea, the ocean, whatever, it's just, like, it's this just vast, unexplored region. You don't know what's going on down there. And just the fact, I mean, thinking about this ship that's been down there for 50 years... Yeah. And the bodies are still on it. They're probably pretty preserved too, because it's cold down there. And you know, just kind of thinking about it, it's just kind of still like, oh, that like weirds me out. It's like super creepy. I think that's kind of why I'm interested in this kind of stuff, because I like that kind of creepy shit.
Yeah, you know? This is true. Lots of Eastern European genes mixing up here. Yeah. Well, look how good looking Sophie is.
That's true.
Her last name is Benjaminson. You can't get any more fucking Swedish sounding than that. That's like Sweden or Norway. Benjaminson.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like they couldn't stop with the names. Yeah, they just have to keep adding more. Yeah. They have to keep adding more syllables.
Yeah, but I mentioned that one time when we had some people from Norway, friends from Norway, were here listening, and I mentioned that Michigan was just kind of a Scandinavian state. And he was like, "What?" But Europeans don't really have a good grasp of what the United States is. They think everything's just mixed up. It's not. It's patchwork quilt of recreations of Europe, basically. Northern Europe, Southern Europe.
Yeah, because
our Latino population are just Southern Europeans. They're Spain, Portugal, Italy. You know, they might have some Native American mixed into them, but they're just Catholics, like from South Europe. You know, but yeah, and in that particular state, the immigrants that moved in there were from Poland, Czechoslovakia, Sweden, Scandinavia, that area. And they mostly moved in there in the 1800s. And then all the way up until like the 30s, they were still moving into places like Poland and Czechoslovakia. All the names end with some kind of ski, Kowalski, Nowalski, shit like that. That's all the down Poles.
Big.
Poles and Czechs.
Also, Chicago has a big Polish
yeah.
population. Well, much like places like Philadelphia, like has huge Irish population. It's like, like I said, there's a lot of mixing and stuff like that. But there are some cities that have big pockets.
Yeah, it's regions
of
patchwork regions.
Like hell, even Orlando has Little Vietnam.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. Which is like, it's not massive, but there's like a little pocket of like a lot of Vietnamese immigrants and restaurants and stuff like that. It's just like a few blocks.
But... Yeah, traditionally Boston is just English with Irish.
And Irish.
That was the main thing. New people have moved in very recently, but really, Boston was New England. The heart of New England. It was England. It was a recreation of it. That's where they were coming from.
Yeah, Gramther says, ever feel the pressure in the deep end of a swimming pool? Those Fitzgerald bodies are under 400 feet of water. Yeah, actually 530 feet of water.
Ooh, she got it.
It was. I actually did again. I'm being that guy again. Well, hey, I had it in my notes, okay? It was 530 feet is where they are. And like I said, that's just really spooky to me. So, the last voyage of the Edmund Fitzgerald began on November 9th, 1975. So they were at the Burlington Northern Railroad dock, number 1, in Superior, Wisconsin. And like I said, they would kind of go up alongside, it was kind of this big dock. Like the ship would go up along this big dock, and there was like a train track kind of thing. I'm not sure if this was the way this one was, but this was the way that I saw one demonstrated. And then a train would come up, and like all the taconite would come out of the train cars and into the cargo holds, like with these big chutes, you know what I mean? So all the stuff was loaded. Like I said, it was 26,116 long tons of taconite pellets. And they started doing that about 8:30 in the morning, and it took a few hours, you know what I mean? Because, like I said, it was a lot of shit. So Captain McSorley and his crew, which was 28 men, left at about, like, between 2:15, 2:30 p.m. And they were actually sailing for, it's Zug Island, right? I want to say it's Zug Island, which is near Detroit. And they were planning on taking the standard downbound route, as they called it, through Lake Superior. Now, not too long after that, another freighter called the SS Arthur M. Anderson, which was captained by Bernie Cooper. His name was Jesse, but he was called Bernie. There's interviews with him on some of the documentaries, like, you know, not too long after what happened, and he kind of talks about what happened. That actually left from Two Harbors, Minnesota, and was going to Gary, Indiana, but was going to take mostly the same route, like, for most of the way. Now, Fitzgerald was out ahead, actually, because it was faster, and it was about 10-15 miles ahead of the other ship. I heard somebody correct someone that it's like, and I don't know if this is true, maybe somebody that's more familiar with maritime stuff could tell me, but I heard somebody say, well, it's technically only a ship if it's in the ocean. If it's Great Lakes, it's called a laker. And I was just kind of like, I don't know. I'm still going to call it a ship, though. It looks like a ship to me. You know what I mean? But I don't know. I don't know if that's correct. I just heard somebody say that. So, yeah. Now, obviously, the two ships, they're only, you know, a few miles apart, and they're kind of going the same route. So they had, like, you know, radio contact pretty much the whole time. There was also a third vessel called the SS Wilfred Sykes. These were all named after usually company executives and stuff like that. That's why they all have dudes' names. And the captain of that one was named Dudley Paquette. And he left Superior later in the afternoon, about 4:15. And he was going to go north along the Canadian shore because of the inclement weather. Which, like I said, at first, they had thought the weather was not going to be as bad, but he was going to be more cautious. It takes longer, to go kind of up along the Canadian coast, but you're kind of more, it's a little bit safer because you're a little bit more protected. You're like kind of more in the lee or whatever. So now the initial forecasts from the National Weather Service had predicted a storm. The storm had actually originated in Kansas and was kind of moving up toward the Great Lakes. And at first, they thought that the storm was going to pass south of Lake Superior at about 7 a.m. on November 10th. So initially they thought, well, the conditions will probably be bad, but it probably won't be that bad because it's not going to come directly over you. But like I said, because Captain Paquette, who was on the Wilfred Sykes, was kind of like, I'm not really trusting that. So he's like, I'm going to go northern. It'll take longer, but, it's probably a little bit safer. However, both Captain McSorley on the Fitzgerald and Cooper on the Anderson decided to just go the regular route, which is kind of, I've seen like maps drawn of it, was kind of like through the middle of the lake, essentially, and then kind of down like that. So that's what they did. And so early evening comes along, like a few hours after they left, and everything seemed okay. You know what I mean? They're going ahead, no problems, nothing like that. However, overnight conditions deteriorated. The storm actually changed course slightly, and instead of kind of going south of Lake Superior, it was now going to go pretty much right over it, which is bad. So the National Weather Service changed its forecast about 7 that night and issued gale warnings for all of Lake Superior. At this stage, when the gale warnings were issued, both the Anderson and the Fitzgerald said, okay, well, we're going to go up north like the other guy did at first, because you get protection, like some protection from the Canadian coastline, right? So they said, okay, well, we're going to do that now. So like I said, they did the right thing. Weather looked okay when they first started out. They didn't think the storm was going to hit them directly. So they were just going to take the regular route, but as soon as the gale warning came, they said, okay, well, we're going to go up this way then, which is what you're supposed to do. However, on the way, they encountered a winter storm around 1 a.m. And the Fitzgerald was reporting winds of 52 knots, which is about 60 miles an hour, and waves about 10 feet high. It got worse, trust me. That's like bad enough, you know what I mean? And the guy on the third ship, Captain Paquette, who had gone north to start with, he said that he heard McSorley on the Fitzgerald say over the radio that he had to slow down because the conditions were getting bad. And so he basically said, he reported that McSorley had said over the radio, he said, we're going to try for some lee from Isle Royale. You're walking away from us anyway. I can't stay with you. That's what he said. At 2 in the morning on November 10th, the National Weather Service upgraded its warnings from gale to storm warning. And this would be winds of 35 to 50 knots, about 40 to 58 miles per hour. I believe at this point, it might have been a little bit later. I can't really remember at what point the National Weather Service was like, if you're on Lake Superior, get the fuck off right now. Like, pretty much. Like, whatever you can do. But it was right around this time because conditions were getting very, very bad. Now, so until this point, like the Fitzgerald had kind of been going along with the Anderson. Like I said, they were, about 10, 15 miles apart. Now, at 3 in the morning, the Fitzgerald was ahead of the Anderson. And the storm center actually passed over the ships at about 3 in the morning-ish. And if this was a hurricane, if you grew up in Florida, you know this. Like, the first part of the hurricane fucking slams into you, and then there's a period of relative calm. That is the eye. And you might think, if you're not from here, or if you don't watch the Weather Channel, you might think, oh, it's over. It is not over. And in fact, it gets worse because now the back end of the storm is going to hit you because it's round and there's a big hole in the middle. So that's essentially what was happening. So it actually calmed down a little bit. It was still shitty, but it was like calmer than it had been. But they knew that it's like, okay, well, now we're about to get our ass whipped from the other side. You know what I mean? Because the wind like changes direction. So the wind shifts, and then when, like I said, it had gone up the wind speeds at this point about 60 miles per hour. And then at about 2:45, it started to snow. So they couldn't see all that good. And the Anderson actually lost sight of the Edmund Fitzgerald, which was about 16 miles ahead. And now this is several hours before anything bad happened. So it's like, so it's already shitty. Like, because this storm, it wasn't just, the storm went on for hours. You know what I mean? So these ships were just being fucking beaten up, like, for hours. Now, interestingly, Cooper would later report he couldn't see the Fitzgerald, you know, by eye anymore. Like, it's only 16 miles away. On a clear day, you would have been able to see him, like, clearly. But the weather was so bad that the visibility was shitty, so he couldn't see it. But he could still see it on his radar. And he thought that when the ship was going near Caribou Island, that he went too close to what is called the Six Fathom Shoal. And it's this shoal around the island that I believe it's only like 25 feet deep right there. Like, it's real shallow. Maybe it was 35 feet. I can't remember. But it's like super shallow, like this shoal is. And Cooper said that he's like, I was pretty sure that on my radar, the ship looked like it went right over Caribou Island or right over that shoal. And he was like, shit, that's not good because, you know, the Fitzgerald was overloaded technically, and it hung real low in the water. And it's like, if it went over that shoal, it could tear your hull out or fuck the hull up, you know what I mean? And you could sink. So he was kind of concerned about that because he thought he saw it go over there. But McSorley didn't report anything like that. So he's like, okay, well, I guess it's fine. Now, around 3:30, McSorley on the Fitzgerald, he radioed to Cooper. And he said, Anderson, this is the Fitzgerald. I have a fence rail down, 2 vents lost or damaged, and a list, meaning the ship was, you know, listing to one side. I'm checking down, meaning I'm slowing down. Will you stay by me till I get to Whitefish? Meaning he's going to Whitefish Bay, which was the safe area where all the ships were kind of heading to, where you'd be protected from the storm somewhat. And Cooper says, well, are your pumps running, your bilge pumps that would get all the water out? And he says, yes, both of them. The weird thing, the Fitzgerald had 6 pumps. I believe it was 4 big ones and 2 little ones. They were different types, though. So most people think when he said both of them, he meant all of them, like both types. I think that's what he meant. So he's like, all the pumps were running, but evidently it wasn't getting the water out quick enough. Now, the interesting thing, and we'll talk about this a little bit when we talk about theories about it, when he talked about the vent damage, it's just these little, I think, if I'm remembering correctly, like looking at the shit, like on the documentary, is that it's these little things that were like sticking out of the deck. And I think that if they came off, like water would be able to get into the ballast tanks and perhaps into the cargo hold. I'm not really sure. I think it got into the cargo hold like other ways.
Yeah, what it is, you have a pipe that comes up.
Yeah, it was like a pipe.
It has to be a top to the pipe, but it can't seal because you need ventilation. So what you do is you have something that's kind of like an upside down bowl on it, held by pieces of metal that hold it there. Water came and ripped it off. So now things can go directly down in that pipe.
Yeah.
That's what he was talking about.
Or some people have speculated that maybe there was something big in the water that knocked it off.
Could have been.
Because they're like, water probably wouldn't have done that.
But
something knocked it loose.
Might have been a piece of wood floating.
Yeah, some people have speculated that maybe it was like a tree, part of a tree.
Yeah, it knocked those metal covers off the top of that fucking pipe, allowing water to go down to that pipe. Because normally what you'd have over there, I don't know how. I just understood it by the way they were describing it in the pictures.
Yeah,
I've seen that kind of shit before. You have a pipe that comes straight up. You want it to be able to ventilate, but you don't want things to go in. So you put a bowl over the top of it, not touching it. There's no seal, but it overhangs the edge.
Yeah.
That way it's difficult to get things in it. It has to turn a corner and go down.
Right.
So if a big wave comes through, yeah, some will go in there, but not a lot. You take that little bowl off the top of it, and a lot more will go in there. That's what happened. It lost that. So it was able to take on a lot more water than normal.
Yeah, because they know that he had vent damage because he said that
vent.
on the radio, several hours before the disaster.
Not catastrophic, but...
No, but considering all... It was just the start of, like, a domino effect.
Yeah, because there's pumps down there that can pump it back out.
Yeah, and all of those were on.
But you're putting a lot of more stress on your pumps, and if you fucking got a lot of waves going over there, there could be a chance where the pumps can't really keep up with it.
And that's essentially what seemed like was happening, because it was just too much water. Because, like I said, as the storm got worse... it wasn't just a thing of like, you know, what they call white water, just like kind of the foam like coming up over the deck. It's what they call green water, which was the whole ass water.
Solid water.
Over the boat.
Not a mixture of water and
like
air,
the boat was kind of like going underwater partially.
Yeah.
Like sometimes the whole middle part of the boat was submerged. And actually, like I said, when they did the reenactment from the Anderson, because, you know, that guy, they made it. But he got hit by some of the same waves too, because, you know, he lived, so he described what was happening, and they used that in their reconstruction. And at one stage in the reconstruction, like this huge wave comes like up over the stern, and it just like came up like that, and it just like submerged the whole ass boat.
Yeah. Grampton says, "Imagine the terror those guys were going through when they realized what was happening."
That's what I was thinking too.
I was thinking
horrifying.
I was thinking the other way around. I was thinking they were cool and calm. I think they were very professional about it and not real emotional. They were like, okay, this is happening. Oh, now this is happening. Okay.
Well, here's the thing.
They were pretty hardened dudes.
And I kind of feel like most of them, like I said, most of the dudes on the ship, there were a couple dudes in their 20s. But other than the one guy who was a cadet, I mean, this wasn't their first rodeo. Like, most of the guys were old. They were, 50s. So they were very seasoned. They had done this a lot of times before, and they'd been through really bad storms before, and they probably didn't have any reason to think this was going to be a difference. Like, wow, this is suckier than most, but it's like, we'll make it. We always made it before.
And there is another thing, is that they're in a unit, okay? And when you're in I have my military background being in a unit, suffering is a lot easier, and death is a lot easier to face when you're in a large group. Because it's kind of like...
It's happening to everybody.
It's all happening to everybody, so you're all in this
the same
together.
Boat, yeah.
So there's something comforting about it.
I can see that, yeah.
So I don't think they were in a panic. I think they were just worried about each other and, well, it looks like we're all going to die. Okay, boys, we're all going to die together. That's like in the song when the fucking captain goes, "It was nice to know you."
Yeah. I think the cook said that,
The cook said, "Nice to know you."
Even though there's no... That's song. That's poetic
license, but I think he called it right.
There was a cook on the ship, but
that's usually how it goes.
Because no one lives.
That's usually how it goes in military units that have been together for a long time. It's joint suffering, joint death. It's everybody's going together, so fuck it. Let's all go. Fuck it, going out with my brothers.
Yeah. And I mean, it has
Hold
to
on, man, we going.
I kind of feel like it has to be if you do that for a living. I mean, nobody thinks they're going to die, right? Really. Until it's actually happening. But I kind of feel like if you do that for a living, it has to be in the back of your mind that it could happen at any time.
When that water hit them, it was so cold.
I kind of hope it happened too quick.
It happened so fast. They were just like, oh,
I mean, I'm sure they knew because, like I said, it wasn't just like one thing immediate. Like, an asteroid hit him or anything like that. Like, the shit had been going on for hours. But like I said, I kind of feel like you were probably so working on, we got to get this water out of here, we got to do this and that, doing their jobs. And they're like, hey, we've been through shitty storms like this before. Not as bad as this, obviously, but they'd been through other things like this before. So it's like, so maybe they were just concentrating on, we'll get through this. Yeah. Like we always did before.
If you're going to drown and you take one breath of water, just breathe it in, they say it knocks you instantly unconscious. And that's probably what happened.
I mean, I hope so. I would hate to think that they were... Because I was thinking that, too. I was like, holy shit, like, that'd be fucking terrifying. I was terrified just watching the fucking reenactment of that fucking wave coming over the ship. I was like, no fucking thank you. No thank you.
Yeah, if you're being held underwater, you're going to hold your breath. And fighting that's going to be rough. But I think if you're just hit by a wave of water and the ship starts fucking capsizing and going through a bunch of fucking shit as it's racing towards the bottom fucking nose first, I think you're hitting bulkheads and the shit is, and I think
it's probably so chaotic.
It's so chaotic
that you don't even realize.
You don't.
Maybe.
It's just like the camera's shaking and you inhale water.
Yeah.
You know, things are hitting you. You know what I mean? Pieces of furniture and shit are hitting you. And just you instinctively inhale water and you're immediately knocked out. Yeah. That's what I think. I think it's painless.
Yeah, because like I said, it's probably just chaos.
Guys. Yeah.
You know? Because it's just like the whole thing was...
It'd be like you jumping into a goddamn washing machine.
Yeah, I'm sure that's probably exactly what it was like. Yeah, Granther said, I bet they were scared as fuck, just didn't panic. I was scared as fuck many times. My cop career just masked it. Acted tough, but hands were shaking when I walked through the door when we got home. And that's the thing. It's like, there's nothing wrong with that. It's very human. It's just, you know, you got to get a job done and shit like that, but it's...
And when you get addicted to it, that means you got PTSD.
Yeah.
I love danger. That's why I ride those motorcycles and do all that shit. I love it.
I'm not a fan.
I just try to keep
I like
from
safe
getting killed.
danger, like
I just try to keep
roller coasters and shit. You know what I mean? Yeah. Where I probably won't. I mean, yeah, you could still get killed on a roller coaster, but it's probably
you can get killed at any time, anywhere.
Yeah, that's true. You could get killed doing something dumb.
Right. Yeah.
Like I've always thought, I'm just like I'm gonna get killed in a really stupid way. Like I'm gonna be walking down the stairs with my laundry, and Bambi's gonna run under my feet and
trip and fall
and like
break your neck,
break my neck.
Yeah, and I
feel like that's a lot more.
And I don't hear it, and I go down and find you 45 minutes later.
Yeah.
Oh man, I'd be fucked up.
I know, but I've thought about it lots because she's done that to me.
Yeah.
I mean,
she likes those stairs. She likes.
I'm very careful.
Yeah.
But she has a habit of running under your feet because I don't know if she thinks it's funny or I don't know what it is.
She's playing.
And she's playing, but she doesn't realize. So it's like when I'm up the stair, I'm like very careful. I'm like, don't, and she'll just like, boom, 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 like suddenly come behind. I'm like,
yeah,
stop doing that.
She likes going up and down the stairs with you.
Yeah, she's like, yay, we're going up and down the stairs. Yay, we're going up the stairs. I'm just like, oh my god, I'm gonna get killed doing this. I just know it. And like I said, I don't want to die in a stupid way like that, but it's just kind of like I feel like that's a lot more likely than some of the other shit that. It's a lot more likely than me being on a ship that goes down. That's for sure. Because I'm not gonna go on one of these. So at this point, like I said, McSorley is very calm. Like I say, the whole time, this is another thing that was really creepy to me, is that he did not, because they talked to him on the radio until not too long before whatever happened, and he was not panicked at all. He was just very calm and professional, and you know, like I said, I don't know if he just thought that they were gonna make it and it wasn't gonna, and it was bad, but it wasn't that bad. Like, oh, we've been through shit before, or if he was just really, really good at being chill. You know, like I said, he'd been doing this for 40 years, so he's very hardened. But yeah, so he had some damage to his shit, and basically he just asked the Anderson, because the Anderson was, you know, several miles behind him, and he's just like, you know, hey, can you, you know, watch my back, or like come with me, we're going to Whitefish. That's where they were all supposed to go, because like I said, the National Weather Service said, like, look, the weather's too shitty, everybody get off the lake, like right now, as soon as possible. So they were all heading to Whitefish Bay. That's where they were going. So the radio traffic continued fairly normally back and forth, just routine navigational updates. Now, at 4:10, as if he didn't have enough problems, McSorley on the Fitzgerald calls the Anderson and says that both of his radars are out, like his main radar and his backup radar. And he can't see anything because the visibility is shit, like it's storming, snowing. So he basically asked the Anderson, can you track me on your radar and tell me where I am, like where I'm going, because I can't see anything. He's blind, you know what I mean, essentially. And McSorley also called, here's another shitty thing that happened, the Coast Guard. There was a Whitefish Point, like, had a lighthouse and a radio beacon, and the beacon was not working, and he also could not see the light. I think there was a power outage because of the storm. Now, some people reported that they did see the light, but McSorley couldn't see it. So he thought the light was out, so he had no idea where the lighthouse was. He couldn't see where he was going or anything. But like I said, he was creepily very calm when he called the Anderson and said, hey, can you track me on your radar? I can't see anything. Like, pretty much. I don't have any radar. I don't have anything. I can't see the lighthouse or nothing. So, yeah. Now, he was reported to, and I don't think he was talking, if I remember correctly, I don't think he was talking to Cooper on the Anderson, I think he was talking to the captain of another ship that was a Swedish ship that was like farther north. And I think that guy said that he said something like, don't allow nobody on deck. And like he was yelling, like, you know, because I guess somebody was up on the deck and he's like, get the fuck off. Why would you be up on the deck in that storm? I have no idea. But, you know, because the thing about it was that, like I said, the ship had this big long deck. And if you wanted to get from one end of the ship to the other, you could walk on the deck because it's all open with just the hatches in the middle. But there was a tunnel underneath, like, you know, for when the weather was shitty, like, obviously, because you don't want to, you'd be swept out to sea, like, immediately. So I don't know about that. So a later radio transmission, he now says he has a bad list, meaning, you know, the ship is listing even worse. Both of his radars are out. And he says, very heavy seas over the deck. This is one of the worst seas I have ever been in, he said. Which it was. And Bernie Cooper on the Anderson, which made it, he said the same thing. He's like, yeah, we've been through shitty storms before, but woo, this was a doozy. You know what I mean? Pretty much. So, basically, like I said, 58 knot winds, waves 18 to 25 feet, and they had wind gusts up to about 75 knots. Like I said, if this was in the ocean, it would be a hurricane, and they are right in the fucking middle of it. Now, a little before 7 o'clock, the Anderson, the other ship, was hit by 2 huge waves. Now, there is a phenomenon in the Great Lakes, particularly in Lake Superior, which they call the Three Sisters.
Yeah, Three Sisters.
Which is kind of like, it's like
Three
a succession of 3 big rogue waves.
Waves.
Like whack, 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 like that. And they think it was this. He just remembered 2. But he said that the ship like was pretty much almost submerged. This was what I was talking about when I said like on the reenactment that they did, like the 3D digital reenactment, where the ship like pretty much went almost all the way underwater.
Yeah, you imagine it's trying to float, and then a wave comes. It can't
Like this,
raise in time to go. So the wave just goes over it, and it's underneath the water.
Mm-hmm.
Dozens of feet.
Yeah.
And that's enough to bust out windows.
Mm-hmm.
Even though the windows are thick, they're built for that. But you're talking about a rogue wave.
Yeah.
You know, there's a lot of forces. It's a heavy fucking ship. It's flexing. Then that's a lot of fucking water hitting it.
Yeah.
You might be 20 feet under the water, and that water is moving 35 miles an hour.
And water is very heavy.
Yeah, water weighs a lot.
And the ships are built for that, but up to a point.
Right.
You know what I mean?
So during those rogue waves, you could have had windows breaking out.
Yeah.
All right. That means the next wave, they're going to take a bunch of water.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that's bad.
And some of those windows that broke may have been right there in the fucking cabin. I mean, not what do you call it?
Like the engine room or the
no, where the control tower is.
Yeah.
What do they call it?
Like the bridge or whatever?
The bridge.
Yeah.
So the bridge may have taken water. Because at the end of this, there was no time and there was no messages from them. So that means the bridge may have not been there or operational in the final minutes.
Well, no, there was another radio thing.
After that radio is what I'm talking about. There was another one after this. Okay. All right. I think the bridge got swamped. Eventually, you didn't hear from him again. Yeah,
because what Cooper speculated happened later. Because, like I said, when I watched the interview, like he's like, we got slammed by 2 big waves. They did mention 3 sisters. He's like, I just remember these 2 big waves like coming over, and it's like they were pretty much submerged, but they bobbed back up. Because, like I said, the ships are built to take a beating in that regard. But he speculated that, you know, the same waves might have hit the Fitzgerald, which was several miles ahead of him.
Yeah, and there might have been 3 for them.
And yeah, who knows? You know, he got hit by the waves, so they were there. You know what I mean? Yeah. So it's like, that doesn't seem that unlikely to me. Now, the last radio exchange, this is what's fucking creepy to me, between the Anderson and the Fitzgerald, was actually Cooper had left the bridge for whatever reason. So the first mate was talking to him, whose name was Morgan Clark, I think. And he called, you know, the Fitzgerald to see how they were doing, because they were talking to them the whole time, because, like I said, they were tracking them on the radar, because they didn't have any radar. And he's like, you know, have you checked down? Have you slowed down? McSorley said yes. And he updated. He's like, "This is where you are. It's like you're a little bit off course, but not too bad. Like you might want to, adjust your position a little bit this way, like to get where you're going, and shit like that." And then I think there was another ship that was in the vicinity, and McSorley was like, "Well, am I going to clear him or whatever?" He's like, "Yeah, he's going to go to the west of you. It's fine. Don't worry about it." Because he couldn't see any other ships either because he didn't have any radar, so he was counting on the Anderson to give him all this information. And then this is what creeps me out. So like almost as an afterthought, because like I said, they were saying, "Oh, there's this other ship. He's not going to hit you. It's fine," or whatever. And then so the first mate says, "Oh, by the way, Fitzgerald, how are you making out with your problems?" Meaning the vent and all that other kind of stuff. And McSorley said, "We are holding our own."
Yeah, holding your own.
And those were his last fucking words. That was the last they heard from him. And Clark said, "Okay, fine. We'll be talking to you later."
Yeah, it means it
Spoiler
wasn't over.
alert, they would not
water.
be talking to him later.
Something else happened.
Well, yeah, so they're saying, and by that, it's like, well, they assumed that because McSorley was calm and said, "We're holding our own," he didn't say, "Oh my God, we're dying. Oh my God, it's terrible. Like, this is the worst."
It wasn't getting worse.
It wasn't getting worse. So he probably assumed that they were probably going to make it. They weren't that far from Whitefish Bay, only about another hour and a half, and they would have got there. Because he had to slow down because the weather was bad. But they said it probably would have taken another hour, 90 minutes, and they would have been there, and they would have been safe. So he probably thought, even though the ship was damaged, that he was probably going to make it. Because he wasn't panicking, he wasn't reporting anything else that was happening or unusual. He just said, "We're holding our own, like we're hanging in there." But sadly, that was the last thing he said. Sometime between 7:15 and 7:22 p.m., the radar blip on the Anderson's radar screen that represented the Fitzgerald disappeared. Now, they said that it had been kind of flickering in and out because the seas were so bad, you know what I mean? But after that, like, it did not return.
It was taking water.
And so obviously the guys were like, "Oh my God, it just went off the fucking radar." And then, So
you were talking about 7 minutes?
Yeah, something like that. Like, it's sometime in that area. Like I said, it was the radar blip was kind of flicking in and out because of the shitty weather or water. Yeah, they figured that's probably what it was.
Could have been waves.
But after about 7:22, it just disappeared and did not come back.
And the radio message was when
7:10 ish.
7:10. So within about 10 minutes.
So it was like a 10-minute window.
Okay, and then probably went down 5 minutes later. It started to go down.
Yeah, they said
like that.
Whatever happened, it happened like in a minute or two because there was no way. So
there wasn't enough time to send any kind of message.
No.
Whatever it was, it happened so fast they couldn't send a radio message.
Yeah, there was no distress call. There was no SOS. There was no time to get to the lifeboat.
5 or 6 minutes later, something happened.
Yeah.
And they had to deal with it.
It must have been sudden, like I said, because 7:10 they talked to him, and I'm sure he didn't think everything was fine, but he's like, "Hey, we're hanging in there. Like nothing's gotten worse since last time we talked." And he was talking normally. You know what I mean? Like asking about his coordinates and stuff like that. So it must have happened like pretty quickly.
Yeah, he talked to him on the radio. 5 to 7 minutes later, something happened.
Yeah. So yeah, and so everybody, and the shitty thing, like Cooper was like, obviously when we saw the ship disappear off the radar, I told all the crew, it's like, go out there and see if you can, see him like visually. And they're like, obviously the weather was so shitty, you couldn't really see much of anything. Like had it been clear, like I said, you'd be able to see them like no problem. But he's like, he couldn't see anything. And he's like, well, maybe their power's out because of the weather, like maybe they just went dark, and it's like maybe they're still there, but they're just looking. And then they radioed to some of the ships that had already made it to Whitefish Bay that were safely in there and docked. And he was like, "Can you guys see it? That's only about 17-ish miles from you." And they're like, "Yeah, we don't see anything either." So they were kind of flipping out, you know what I mean? Because they said, well, something really bad would happen.
Yeah, we already know the possibilities, what could have happened. There was probably 4 different things that could have happened. 2 of them were real strong possibilities.
Or it could have been a combo
of several of those things. Yeah. We're going to get down into what could have possibly happened. But I have my opinions, but we will never know.
No, I don't think
we'll never know exactly what it was. Ship went down, and it went down fast. It went down so fast and it was so violent they couldn't call for help.
Yeah, they're like there was not even a distress call. There was no radio. There was nothing.
Yeah, so it was a catastrophic failure of some sort.
Yeah. Granther says at the Dawson Great Lakes Museum, which I believe is where the anchor is, they have the final radio transmissions on repeat over the speakers. It's bone chilling to hear. Yeah, I heard them on a documentary, and like I said, because you know what happened, it's like really creepy. And the fact that the last thing that McSorley said was "We are holding our own," and he said it like calmly, like, "Oh, it's okay, we're hanging in there, we'll make it," or whatever. And then a couple minutes later, not so much. Like they vanished off the fucking radar, and everyone started freaking out. So yeah. Now, so around this time, because the crew on the Anderson could not establish contact, obviously they tried calling on the radio and everything like that, and obviously no one was answering. So about 7:39 p.m., the Anderson notified the Coast Guard in Sault Ste. Marie that something had probably happened to the Fitzgerald, and they might want to do something about that. And so about 8 p.m., so the Coast Guard, and this was all recorded too. Like I said, if you watch a documentary about it, it's like they'll usually play like a lot of the recordings between Cooper and the Coast Guard representatives. And the Coast Guard, I guess, they didn't really have the resources right then, like to come right out. And the storm was still really, really bad. So basically, they, in the meantime, the Anderson had gotten into Whitefish Bay and was safe. Like, they had kind of pulled in there with all the other ships that had gotten the hell off Lake Superior. And so the Coast Guard was basically like, well, look, we can't really get out there. It's like, would you go back out there and look for them? You know what I mean? Because to be honest, it was probably one of the only, like another freighter like that would have been the only one that could have weathered the storm, right? Because he made it through. And Cooper, you could tell he was just kind of like, are you fucking kidding me right now? But it's like, obviously he's not going to say that. He's like, oh God. He's like, I don't know. He's like, it's going to be really slow going. Like out there's like the storm is really, he said the sea is big, meaning like huge, huge waves. Yeah. And he's like, I'm not going to be able to get very far. But he's like, obviously he was going to go, right? And then another ship called the SS William Clay Ford, another freighter, also joined him like in the search. And like I said, the storm is not gone. It's still bad. And so, but these two ships, bless them, they went back out into the fucking storm to see if they could find anybody. Because that's just what you do. You know what I mean? That's what you do. Sadly, though, the only thing that they ever found was a couple of smashed lifeboats. Which were empty.
Half a
lifeboat. Yeah. And then another one that was still intact but all busted up on the end. These are also both in museums now.
Yeah, they analyzed it though. Those lifeboats were never released.
No, they were still attached to the
as
davits,
the ship went down, the fucking water tore them loose off the ship.
Nobody had time. To get to the lifeboats.
No.
And I think they also found like a life jacket that was inflated, but no one was in it, obviously. And they just found like an oil slick and some general detritus.
Somebody might have been trying to get that on.
Yeah, I think that's why. Or who knows? But that's all they found. Like I said, they did found half a lifeboat and like another busted up lifeboat, but they were still attached to. So they hadn't been deployed.
It was too fast.
Whatever happened
didn't even
happened
have a
too
chance
quick.
to get to that lifeboat.
They
were whatever happened. They were worried about the immediate fucking situation. Here, I'll give you some of mine because I don't even think I can drink it.
Because you refilled it. Well, that's only my first one because I was talking.
I can make more later.
So I wasn't really drinking a lot much because, like I said, for some reason I got like super into this topic and it's just kind of.
It's a good show.
Yeah,
interesting show.
I found this like really interesting.
Kind of creepy.
All this stuff.
I don't know if we're fucking tainted by the sound of that song though. But this is...
I think that does color my perception of it because that's the first time I heard about it when I was little.
Yeah.
It was from the song.
It's a creepy song. It's a good song, really good. And it sounds like something from the sea, old folk song. You know, something you hear from the off there. And it's a true story. So you're like, oh yeah. And it sounds like something that they should be talking about something from a couple hundred years ago, but no, it was
in the 70s. It was in our lifetime.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I was 3 years old when this happened.
You're right.
And like I said, the song came out, I think, the same year or the following year. So I was about 4 years old when the song came out. But I remember it being played on the radio when I was a kid. And like I said, because it was kind of spooky, so I was like attracted to it because I love spooky shit. And I was just kind of like, whoa. I didn't know about the actual thing until like a little bit later. But I was like, I loved anything spooky to do with like ships or like ghost ships or anything like that.
Just kind of mysterious what happened to these dudes.
Yeah, and it's just
they all went down together.
Yeah, it's horrifying. So so the two ships go out. Obviously, they don't find anything. The weather's super shitty. Later that night, the Coast Guard sent a aircraft out and a helicopter. And then the following day, like they sent out a cutter and a couple other ships and stuff like that. And, you know, the Canadian authorities also sent a bunch of stuff out. Obviously, as I mentioned, no survivors or bodies were recovered. All 29 people perished in the ship.
29 died.
So after that, like several days later, they decided that they were just going to try and see if they could find where the wreck was. So a few days later, November 14th, the U.S. Navy had a P-3 Orion, and it was flying over the lake and spotted a magnetic anomaly with a detector that they had. That's what they were looking for. And so they did some sonar surveys, the Coast Guard did, and they found two big objects on the lake bed.
Yeah, and there were two big objects.
There were two big objects.
Yeah.
There. So that shit works. So they did a visual survey over the week from like May 20th to May 28th of 1976, so it was like the following year, and with a unmanned submersible. And it did 12 dives and took like a whole bunch of video photographs of the wreck. So the ship is in about 530 feet of water. It's in Canadian waters, technically. About 17 miles from Whitefish Point. The ship is broken in, essentially in half. The two pieces are about 170 feet apart.
Which is close.
Which is quite close. Like I said, if you see the photos and the sketches and stuff, because there are photos of it, you know, on the lake bed, and there were sketches, like pretty detailed sketches, like quite close together. The 276-foot bow section is upright, but inclined about 15 degrees. And the 250-foot stern section, which is inverted, not completely upside down, but almost. There's also a debris field of taconite pellets, which was obviously the cargo. It's just kind of spread around like that. Some hatch covers. A couple of the hatch covers were missing, which probably were just lost at sea somewhere. I don't think they've ever been recovered. There is a midsection, like missing in the middle, about 200 feet. Was probably just obliterated.
Broken into small pieces that drifted away.
Yeah, because there is like debris like all down. Like there's taconite everywhere, and then like there's just pieces. You know what I mean? So that was probably like the midsection.
If it broke apart, it twisted and was torn into fucking shreds.
That seems like what happened. There was also extensive damage to the forward deck house, and the bow had some holes in the plating and impact damage. The damage suggested that the boat had probably gone, like, nosedived, like bow first into the sea and struck the bottom and then broke in half. They think that's probably what happened. There were a couple of expeditions. Like I said, now you are actually not allowed to dive there unless you have permission. Like, they'll let, like, scientific expeditions and stuff. But as far as I know, the last official expedition was, like, in the 90s. Because they don't really, like I said, it's a grave site now, so they don't allow you to go down there. But in 1980, Jean-Michel Cousteau, son of Jacques Cousteau, took a team down there. I don't agree with this, and we'll get into maybe why this is. Like I said, I'm not a structural engineer or anything like that, but it's just like, we'll get into why I don't think this is. But he seemed to think, from diving down and looking at the damage, that he thought the ship had broken in half on the surface, which isn't a crazy thing to think, because a bunch of other ships did that. But I don't think that was the case here, which we'll get into in a little bit.
Debris field doesn't look the same. But
it doesn't really look the same to me. Like I said, I'm not an expert, obviously, but
just the basics of what I learned, it doesn't look like that.
Yeah. So also the NOAA, National Geographic, they did one in 1989. In 1994, like, two private guys, when you were still allowed to do this, dove down there, like, with their own money, and one of these guys, Fred Shannon, he said, and apparently some people have seen it, but I don't think you're allowed to see it. I don't think it was allowed to be released. He said that he got footage of a body. Like I said, they don't know who it is, and it was actually outside the wreckage, like on his back. But as far as I know, the families are not allowing that footage to be shown anywhere, and like I said, I can't really blame them. They don't know who that is. In 1995, and there is a little bit of footage of this, they went down and recovered the bell on the 4th of July, 1995. The bell weighs 200 pounds. It's made of bronze. And they brought the bell up and put it in the Great Lakes Shipwreck Museum.
The bell had an air bubble in it, too.
Yeah, when they took it off the thing, it was like, whoosh, this air bubble came out, and they said that's probably been there since 1975. Yeah. Isn't that weird that air had been in there?
Yeah.
But what they did, they took the original bell. The family actually wanted this. They said, we'll leave the bodies where they are, but it's like, it'd be cool if, they had the bell up there. So they took the bell and they replaced it with a replica bell that had all of the names of the dead on it. They brought the bell up to the museum, and every year on the anniversary, relatives of the victims, they come and they read all their names and they ring the bell, like, for every name. They actually had footage of that in the documentary that I watched that was on Part-Time Explorer, I think it was. They had footage of the 50th anniversary. So, like, all the family members were there in the museum, and they would each come up, they would read the name, and they would ring the bell. And they do that every year. And like I said, when Gordon Lightfoot died in 2023, I think it was, they added another bell ring.
He became a member of the crew.
Yeah, like an honorary member of the crew.
And the crew would have approved of that, though, because he wrote that song that became famous.
He immortalized them.
And he's a member of the crew.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty cool that they did that, actually. I thought it was really nice.
Because fucking, it'd have been the same in an infantry unit if they fucking some dude sang a song about your unit and how y'all got wiped out. Our ghost would be out, yeah, he's now one of us.
Yeah.
That's because he's telling our story.
And as far as I'm aware, I could be wrong, but I believe that Gordon Lightfoot donated all of the proceeds from the song, like, to the families and to causes around that. So, so he seemed like a good dude.
Shit, he could have kept the money if he wanted to, but he's still, it's just the fame and the glory and just the recognition. You become a member of the crew.
Yeah.
And that song is good enough to where those guys would go, yeah, that's it. You got it.
Well, like I said, he immortalized them. Yeah, because look at, and I'm not saying, that's, disparaging, like, the thousands and thousands of other mariners that have been killed on that fucking lake. It's just that he happened to write a song about that one because he was around at that time.
Yeah, it represents all the other ones, too.
And it kind of represents all the other ones. So he kind of immortalized, he always made it into, like, a legend, kind of. And like I said, by default, like, it sort of, like, memorializes all the other ones as well. Because it could have been about any of the wrecks, really. Because
it was just a story he saw, and that's what he sang about.
Yeah, he saw it in Newsweek.
Yeah, right.
And he was like, I'm going to write, like, that song I've been working on, The Dirge, I'm going to write about that. Because he grew up in that area.
If you listen to the song, it's obviously a work of fucking love. I mean, he's like, he's totally into this story and going like, wow. You know what I mean? Those dudes, you know what I mean? They died, for that shit,
Yeah.
The brave motherfuckers, just trying to get a cargo there on time.
Yeah.
Hardcore dudes, like something from another generation. Because these dudes were a throwback to another era, even in the 70s.
Yeah, because like I said, most of them were older. There were a couple guys on there that were in their 20s.
Yeah.
but most of them were 50s.
Yeah, but their mentality of what they were doing was like something from the 1700s.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, we will get this cargo delivered on time no matter what.
Yeah.
I mean, they didn't have to
Even if we die.
Even if we die. That's the thing. It was just men from another era, you know. They didn't, because on the back of this, I don't want to get ahead of Jen's story, but because this happened, they started to kind of change the culture inside these shipping companies. About, maybe when bad weather comes, we'll kind of keep these guys fucking, you know, keep these guys from going out, you know, because it's not fucking that important. You know, it's not like it's wartime where you're trying to deliver war materials to a factory that are going to build a bunch of tanks and a bunch of guns that are fucking to save lives, save your soldiers' lives in Europe. It's not really like that. It wasn't a wartime event. It was just regular merchant vessel activity, you know, delivering steel-making cargo to make cars. It didn't really matter if it was delayed a day or two. But that wasn't the mentality of men of that era. I respect it. I think that's very cool that they would risk themselves over something as trivial as fucking these little damn fucking pellets to make steel. I respect that they would risk themselves that, but come on, it's not that important.
It's not like you're trying to save like babies or anything like that. Yeah, it's stuff. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So because of this, the shipping culture changed in the Great Lakes.
Yeah, they updated a lot of stuff. You know, the ships had tracking and stuff like that now, and like they were a lot more careful about weather. Actually, the one they were talking to this old dude who like is an expert. Like he wrote a book about it back in the 70s, like not too long after happening. He's like one of the main experts like on the Edmund Fitzgerald, and he was talking about. He's like, yeah, after this happened, it's like it made a huge change, like just in the culture around the boats and the freighters. Whereas like before, people were like, yeah, we're gonna push through and stuff like that. People were like, nah, fuck it. You know what I mean? Which, like I said, you can't blame them.
It's not that high a priority.
Yeah, you don't want to die for that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If you're gonna die for something, make it something that's like worth not just like stuff like for a corporation. I feel
right.
like.
I mean, you can understand if it's wartime.
Yeah, it'd be different if it was different circumstances.
And other dudes in other places are dying over this stuff. Then maybe you should cast your lot and risk your own skin. But it really didn't matter that much. They're making steel.
Yeah, it's like
it wouldn't matter if it was 2 days late.
Yeah, and it's like there's other ships that it's like, would you rather it be like at the bottom of the fucking lake like it is now? Like it's still laying there.
Yeah,
they never got it.
Even to the companies even to the companies that were doing this shit, it really wasn't worth it.
No,
because it was better if that shit was 2 days late than lose the ship.
Yeah,
and then lose the crew
and all the cargo.
So the thinking got a little more, I want to say, reasonable.
Yeah. Because it's not real reasonable to like risk all that stuff.
It sure was macho though, wasn't it?
Yeah,
it was macho as a motherfucker.
But macho and reasonable don't
it's
always.
Not always. They don't
always overlap.
That always doesn't overlap.
It usually doesn't overlap.
Well, no, it can.
It can.
It can.
I said usually.
Yeah,
I said usually.
It can sometimes.
Yeah, Gramther says every November the Mariners Cathedral in Detroit. Yeah, they showed that on the documentary. Like the guy that was doing the documentary like went there. Holds a service for the fallen mariners and surviving family members still come. I've thought about going to it, but haven't. Yeah. So he said, I always figured it was tragic and personal and didn't want to be an onlooker. Yeah, I can understand that. I mean, I don't know. Maybe they appreciate like people coming there and remembering it and stuff. Like I said, I don't have any connection to the area, but I just got so into this story that I'd probably cry. You know what I mean? Like if I was there, so I'd be like, I don't want to embarrass myself. Because it's like, I don't know. This story is just like really sad to me. Even though, like I said, I know it happens like all the time. So they did 3 different reports. The Coast Guard did one. The National Transportation Safety Board did one. And there was one other one. I can't remember who the other one did. Their conclusion was, like I said, they didn't come right out and say that it was crew error or crew fault or anything like that. They didn't say that. Their finding, the Coast Guard's finding, was that they still don't know what the conclusive cause was. Like, nobody knows. Like I said, it was probably a combination of factors, I imagine. They posited that the most probable cause was, and this is a quote, the loss of buoyancy and stability resulting from massive flooding of the cargo hold. The flooding of the cargo hold took place through ineffective hatch closures as boarding seas rolled along the spar deck. So that seems to suggest that maybe the crew hadn't clamped down. Because if you see, because I saw like a really good diagrams of this. So it's like it had 21 hatches, like into the 3-ish, even though it was one big cargo hold. And it had these long, narrow tops. And then there was like a gasket. But they were just held on there with these big clamps. Like the clamp would just go on and just go clunk like that. And it just stays on. It's like 5/16 like steel or something like that. Like the top of it. And I think they were trying to imply, perhaps, that the crew had not secured them properly. But from everything, I don't really think that's the case. I think there had been some slight damage to 1 or 2 of the hatches even before it went on the journey. Because, like I said, when it went through inspection about a month before, they said, yeah, there was some minor damage, but nothing. It wasn't a big deal. You know what I mean? They said, yeah, we'll fix it. Like, over the winter, you can just go on this last thing. I think what happened was from the vent breaking off or whatever, because he said 2 of the vents were damaged.
Yeah.
And I think the water started getting in that way. And then I think the water caved in some of the hatches is, I think, what happened. So I don't think it was anything that the crew did. But I mean, they're not wrong that all the water got into the boat.
And it was taking on water.
And the ship was already lower in the water than it probably should have been because it was overloaded. You know, like I said, it wasn't overloaded technically because it was allowed to carry that much. But it was probably more than it should have been carrying, frankly.
It was taking on water because those vent caps were gone.
Yeah, and I think the water was coming in because of that.
And they couldn't pump it out fast enough.
And then they couldn't pump it out fast enough.
And a wave came over eventually. And it caused that bitch to nosedive. And when it nosedived down like that, a bunch of weight shifted forward inside that ship, which caused it to fucking continue going straight down. And it hit the bottom and broke in half. That's what I think happened.
I think that's what happened too.
And fucking that happened fast. Those dudes had that whole fucking ship filled with water once it started going down.
Yeah. I mean,
so
it
there was
must have.
no time to call for help.
No, there wasn't. Like I said, whatever happened, they said it probably just happened in a couple minutes.
It was going along normally, and it started to fucking bog, and then that was straight down. I don't think there was any chance.
No.
Because had it broke apart on the surface, the pieces would have been far apart because some pieces would have been floating for longer than others. And
yeah, because I'm going to talk about a case where that actually did happen.
It was only like 100 feet apart down the bottom.
Yeah.
Which means that it went down as one piece.
Yeah, they're close.
Yeah, and when you look at the drawings of the nose, it fucking went down, that nose hit. Pow! And then it broke in half.
And then just kind of went back like that.
Yeah, and all the cargo went everywhere. Which meant it was going probably down at a fucking 45-degree angle.
Yeah.
They had a high angle. Maybe 90. Huh? Let me say.
Probably about like that.
Yeah.
45.
No, 90.
Maybe more like 60
More like almost like a 140-degree angle. I don't know how to measure it. Fucking. It went down like that, bitch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I'm picturing.
Went down about like a pow and hit and broke in half.
And then broke. That's what I think happened.
Yeah.
That seems the most plausible.
And it was probably moving 70 or 80 miles an hour.
Yeah, it had slowed down because, like I said, because of the horrible conditions.
Once it went underneath the water, though, it was pure weight.
It's first, and they said, like, obviously they don't know, but it's like the speculation was once it went like that, like it was probably like a minute.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's it.
I suspect by looking at it, it hit at about 70 miles an hour.
Yeah.
Because look, terminal velocity is about 120, and that's in the atmosphere. In water, it's going to be less. And then the weight involved.
Yeah, because it was probably real heavy by that stage.
Yeah, it probably hit 70 miles an hour. It went straight down. Bam! Broke in half.
Yeah. See, okay. So Another report, which was the National Transportation Safety Board, I kind of vibe more with this one because it was similar. Like, they came to a similar conclusion, but the emphasis was slightly different. They said that the vessel sank suddenly because of flooding, and they speculated that that one or more of the hatch covers had collapsed under the weight of the water, rather than them being inadequately locked down and there being like a slow leak. Which makes more sense to me because, like I said, if it was a slow leak, you wouldn't have had the problems. Oh my God, the pumps aren't keeping up, or they have pumps for that very reason, to get water out of there, and that wasn't doing it. So you're having a large influx of water from somewhere. Like I said, I think because of the damage to the vents, I think water started coming in. Then I think water started coming over the top, like over the cargo hold, and the weight of it eventually crushed. Maybe knocked one of the hatches off, because two of the hatches on the wreck are missing. I don't think they ever found them. And then I think water started going into the cargo hold, not just into the ballast tanks.
Ben's in there going, speculation. Bitch, we told you from the very beginning, no one will ever know.
No one knows.
No one will ever know.
We're just saying what we think happened.
There's a couple of different theories how it could have been, but you look at the damn wreck, you know that it went down and it hit the nose first. And then it broke apart. It did not break apart on the surface.
I don't think so.
If it broke apart on the surface, the two halves would have been much further apart. And that's consistent
with other wrecks. And like I said, I'll kind of explain, because
they were in the same spot. It went down in one piece at an angle and hit.
And then
broke apart.
Broken, kind of twisted.
Yeah, it was taking on water. And then a wave hit it and swallowed it and swamped it. And then it went down. The pumps couldn't. It was taking more water than the pumps could put up with. And it was already carrying a heavy load.
Yeah, it was already overloaded. So, I mean, they did computer models, and they said that is plausible that, the weight of the water could have, wrenched off, a couple of the, the hatch covers. And like I said, a couple of the hatch covers are missing, so that would explain it. And like I said, the way that it looks, it doesn't look like ships that broke apart on the surface, because that does happen. But I don't know. It just didn't look exactly the same.
It happened fast.
Yeah.
It hit nose first. Both pieces of the fucking ship are right there next to each other. It means it went down at once in one piece and broke apart when it hit. So it didn't break apart on the surface.
Yeah, Granther said the debate has always been, did it break apart on the surface or on the floor? Old salts still argue the issue in bars across Michigan.
It broke apart once it hit.
I kind of feel, and like I said, all of the reports said that they found it highly unlikely that it broke apart on the surface. That it probably broke when it hit the bottom.
It broke apart when it hit the bottom.
When the bow hit the bottom.
And it hit the bottom, and it went down because it was taking on water.
Yeah.
It was taking on more water than they knew it was taking on.
Yeah. Now, there has been... Okay, so we talked about the hatch cover failure being one of the competing theories. And the flooding, which is kind of the official primary theory, supported by both the Coast Guard and the National Transportation Safety Board. They came at it from slightly different angles, but essentially they were saying the same thing. There was some kind of either damage to the hatches, or the hatches weren't adequately locked down. Water got into the cargo hold, the ballast tanks, and then... because the ship was so low in the water, it didn't have enough leeway, and with the more water got in there, the more it weighed, and waves came over and basically made it do a nosedive. Now, there's also been a lot of speculation, because remember how I said that Captain Cooper on the Anderson said that he had seen, a few hours before the sinking, that he thought he saw on the radar, it appeared as though the Fitzgerald went over 6 Fathom Shoal. And so he later speculated, well, that might have damaged the hull, which might have also, brought in more water, you know what I mean? However, like I said, I'm not an expert, but to me, I looked at pictures of the wreckage. I looked at the drawings of the wreckage. There were some slight dents in the hull, but it didn't look like it was torn open. It didn't look like it was damaged to an extent that would cause a large influx of water. They also said they went back later and checked the shoal itself, like to look for like paint scrapings or damage or anything like that, and didn't really find anything. So they're pretty sure. And they're like, and also you'd think if that would have happened, if McSorley had gone over the shoal and had fucked up his hull, you'd think he would have reported that. Like, oh, hey, shit, like I tore the belly out of my ship, essentially, by going over this fucking shallow-ass shoal. And he didn't report that. And like I said, that was a few hours before the sinking. So I don't think, even though I know that that's something that goes around a lot, but just because of what Cooper said, that it looked on the radar like he didn't see it with his eyeballs, he saw it on the radar. He said on the radar it looked like the Fitzgerald had gone right over the shoal, and it's negligible. But the thing about it was that probably the Fitzgerald, I can't remember, but it would have been like less than 10 feet of clearance, maybe like even 5 feet of clearance between the bottom of the ship and the lake bottom, because it's a shoal, you know what I mean? It was shallow. And so he speculated, if the waves were really bad and it went into like, down into a wave, like you could hit the bottom. And so he was like worried about it. And he speculated, well, maybe the hull was damaged and maybe that's how some of the water was getting in. But I don't think so. Like I said, the hull did not look damaged to me from the photos that I saw. The drawing didn't really show any significant damage to the hull. The bow was all kind of bent and fucked up, and a lot of the windows are broken and stuff like that. So I kind of feel like it's more likely to me that something damaged a couple of the vents, water started getting in, which would have caused the list, and then the waves, and then the boat was going lower and lower down in the water, and then the waves started coming up over the ship. Maybe that fucked up one or two of the hatches, and then water started getting into the cargo hold, and then there's like all this weight, and then a big ass wave comes along, probably the same one or two that hit the Anderson, and that was all she wrote. Like, it probably just, all this weight came into the front of the ship, and it just like did it like that. And the thing about it, the ship was not, by shipping standards, was not that old. The ship was only 17 years old. There were much older ones chugging around. Like I said, the Arthur Anderson was in service many years after. And, it was state of the art for the time. I mean, obviously, people talked about the cargo hold not being separated by bulkheads, which they normally would be, which maybe contributed because the water just came in and filled up this whole ass middle of the boat, you know what I mean? Which is going to be a huge amount of weight, which didn't help.
As that boat fucking goes up, lists in a certain direction and moves in a certain direction, if it's filled with water, then the fucking center of gravity shifting on that fucking thing too.
Yeah.
So that might have been part of it. If the fucking bow goes down, what the fuck?
What is she doing?
The front of that ship noses down, and all the water rushes forward. That could pull it.
That's what I think happened. Yeah. Like, because if a wave hit it from the back, like from the stern, then the ship is going to go like that, and then all the water rushes to the front, and then all this weight
gives it momentum. Now it accelerates,
and then it just goes
down
like that, like immediately.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, that seems like what probably
once happened. It builds up momentum, there ain't no air pockets in the world going to stop that. Not with all that cargo in there.
Mm-mm.
And
yeah,
because
you got
acceleration.
They had over 26,000 tons of shit in there.
Yeah.
And now they have like however many tons of fucking water in there too. It wasn't built
and the water's moving, the cargo isn't, but the water is. And the water weighs a lot. So it was something that if you saw it happen, you'd instantly understand it.
Yeah.
You're like, oh yeah, of course. It wasn't, anything paranormal. It was that water sloshing around in there on top of that head cargo.
Like I said, it's not, I mean, it's only mysterious because they don't know exactly what happened, because it's like the ship vanished so fast.
Yeah.
But like I said, that doesn't mean, I was watching the Simon Whistler show I was watching earlier, because the show's Decoding the Unknown. So it's like they always have to add like a jokey kind of like
unknown,
paranormal conspiracy theory kind of thing.
Alien
like they're just making fun of it. Yeah. But because he doesn't believe in any of that stuff. But like some people are just like, oh, it's like it was sunk on purpose because it was secretly carrying nuclear weapons, or like these, people have come up with all kind of dumb shit over the years. You know what I
was
mean?
carrying a mundane cargo.
Yeah, it was just carrying the same shit it always carried.
Yeah,
it was just
same
iron,
thing it always carried.
which was mostly what most of those ships were carrying. That kind of stuff.
They're making steel.
Yeah,
making cars.
Yeah, they're just making steel. So because of this, okay, so some people said because the ship was maybe not built to spec, or maybe there was some structural issues that hadn't been addressed or something like that, that perhaps the ship had broken apart on the surface. And then when the ship was hogging, or, you know, what they call like sagging in the waves or whatever, then it's like it just like broke in half, and that's what caused it to sink. But like I said, that's happened before. It's not crazy. It's not common, but it's not unheard of for ships to do that. But most of the ships that did that were older. Like, I think that, from my understanding, like the steel tempering thing that they used made the steel a lot more brittle back in the old days. And so you'd have a thing where sometimes ships would like legit just snap in half.
Yeah, and the Fitzgerald was flexible.
Yeah.
You got crew members saying that in a storm, that bitch, you could just stand in a hallway and see that shit.
I mean, it's supposed
flex.
to.
It would pop the damn fucking paint off of walls.
It's supposed to flex.
It's supposed to flex.
Because it's supposed to kind of move with the...
Yeah, that'll keep it from snapping.
Yeah, because it's not, you know, you don't want it to be
yeah.
brittle and straight because it'll snap.
It's the same reason why you kind of want flexible steel in a sword. If you want a good blade, you want to if you want to make a good Bowie knife for a fucking machete, you cut that bitch out of spring steel off the bottom of an old fucking car from the 30s. You know, because it won't snap. It'll flex. It'll still hold a blade, but it'll flex. And that's kind of the way these ships were. They had no structural integrity to hold together, but they would also fucking flex. And there was some guy that came forward and wanted to say, well, I saw the ship flexing and that's why it went down. No, having the ship flex and hold together, that's actually a lot better than having it not flex, because it would just snap.
Yeah.
It was filled with water. That's why it went down. And it fucking sloshed forward from all that movement and all the momentum. It's just like what we did. We will never absolutely know, because we weren't there. It was a long time ago. But it's going to be something very mundane. And we know the ship was taking water.
Yeah, because it was already damaged. We know that because he said that on the radio.
He said it was taking water.
Yeah.
That's what it was.
He's like, we got the pumps were running, but it wasn't keeping up.
That's the only anomaly.
It was a lot of water.
The only anomaly to the whole fucking thing, besides the storm, was that it was taking water.
Like a lot of it.
Yeah.
And the pumps couldn't keep up. And so I kind of feel like it probably was a combination of like the vent damage and then the waves coming up over this low ship, maybe fucking up some of the hatch covers, and more water getting in, and like the weight, and it just couldn't take it anymore.
Yeah, and I think it was taking more water than they knew.
And I think the rogue wave theory is also in combo, because like I said, we know that two big ass waves hit the Anderson. Yeah. And so it's not crazy to think that those waves also went 10, 15 miles down and hit the Fitzgerald as well.
Fitzgerald got hit too, I guarantee.
I would imagine. So, I mean, we know those waves were out there. Which
meant it didn't take more. That meant it was taking a lot of water. That's what that means. It was taking water.
Yeah, big time. And
it was taking more water than the captain knew about.
Yeah.
He knew the pumps weren't clearing it. He thought he was holding his own. It was taking more water than that. He didn't know.
Maybe he didn't realize. Like I said, he did realize, but he thought, "Hey man, it's only another hour. We'll make it."
Yeah.
But then the waves. But then that big ass two big waves came and just, and it just like pushed.
He may have censored himself over the radio.
Yeah,
take a lot of water, but I think it'll be all right. Might have been that.
Or like I said, he legit maybe thought they were gonna make it. I don't know. I said, they weren't that far from Whitefish Point. They were only about 17 miles, about an hour. Like I said, if they had kept going for an hour, they would have made it.
And he's probably thinking it'll hold for an hour.
Yeah, he's probably like, but then I think what happened was he thought that they could make it, which they probably could have, but then these two big ass waves came and hit it, and then it just pushed it under the water.
It increased the amount of water that was taken.
I think that's probably what happened. I mean, I don't know.
It's because those covers on them fucking pipes were gone.
Yeah. I think that was the first thing that happened.
Yeah.
I really don't think it's possible, obviously, that there had been some damage when he went over that shoal, but like I said, I didn't really see any damage or anything significant from the photos. And even from the drawings that they did, like when they went down to do these really detailed drawings of the wreckage, it didn't look. It looked like just a couple little bitty dents. It didn't look like any.
Yeah, nothing in the drawings though. They showed those pipes and the fucking covers were gone off those pipes.
Yeah, and one of them was kind of wrenched like that.
Yeah, and something hit them and busted the tops of them. That's where they were taking water. And then next to them, along the side of the railings were fucking bent.
Yeah.
So something hit them.
Yeah.
Something was floating on top of the water during all those waves.
Yeah, it could have been a log or something.
And something made out of wood, something floating. And it fucking busted through those handrails and knocked those fucking covers off and allowed water to get in over time. And it was more water than they could pump out.
Yeah. And then a big wave came and
they were getting swallowed by waves every now and then.
And then smacked
Some of them were just covering the whole ship, and it was all going down in there. And the pumps couldn't pump it out as fast as he thought they could. It was taking more water than he thought.
Yeah.
Is what it was.
Yeah, I think, and like I said, had those waves probably not hit them, I mean, they might have made it.
Well, in all those waves, it's kind of hard to judge what the water line is.
Well, yeah.
So you're not quite sure because the water line's like constantly changing. So,
like I said, it's like being in the fucking spin cycle.
I think I'm floating. It's hard to say in all this shit, you know, but I think I'm floating.
You could not pay me enough to get me out of that shit. No,
he was probably not floating, really.
No fucking way.
He probably was not really all that floating.
Yeah.
But it was hard to tell in that sea.
Like I said, man.
Because it was too turbulent.
The digital models.
Yeah.
Because like I said, it's one thing to imagine it, like what it must have been like. But when they do the digital model, like with the ship that actually looks like that and, you know, out of the thing, and when they show like how big the waves were and like how fucking the boat is like going under fucking water. Like it's just completely like under fucking water. And then, like, kind of pops back up. But like I said, I think it didn't. This time it didn't.
Yeah, it wouldn't matter. It was daytime or nighttime?
Nighttime.
Yeah, so that'd be even harder.
Yeah, he couldn't see shit. Like I said.
He couldn't see. He wouldn't tell where...
He didn't have any radar. He didn't know where he was.
So you wouldn't really be able to tell how low you were sitting in a turbulent water like that.
Yeah. Yeah, like I said, it was just fucking chaos.
I think his water line was rising and rising and rising.
And he'd been through storms before, obviously, but...
But you couldn't tell on a turbulent sea at night.
No.
And then it got to it hit a point of fucking no return. It hit fucking critical mass, and that's it. Fucking wave hit him, water sloshed forward because that shit was in the fucking in the cargo hold, and all that water inside the cargo hold.
It all just went to the front.
And then it nosed down in that wave, and fucking all of a sudden now you got acceleration down.
Yeah, 500 feet. Right to the fucking
bottom. Now I looked at the drawings of the wreck. I didn't see the photos of the wreck. I saw drawings of the wreck.
There's photos of the wreck though that you.
And the damage on the nose. And I was like, that bitch was probably moving 60, 70 miles an hour when it hit.
Yeah, they said it probably took like a minute.
Yeah.
Because like I said,
what was this? What did they estimate the speed that it was moving when it hit?
I never heard anybody say. Like how?
Yeah, it wasn't a slow sinking.
No, not at all.
No.
Yeah, it wasn't. Well, like I said, had it been a slow sinking, they would have had time.
They had time to get out.
To get out or call for help or something, and they didn't.
When it went down, it accelerated towards the bottom. Boom! If you were in there, you would have gone to the back of the bulkhead. There'd have been no way to get out.
No.
Yeah, water would rush in.
Yeah, you'd been fucked.
You're like, what the fuck? It felt like you were racing down to the bottom like going to a roller coaster.
Yeah.
If you ever been on a roller coaster, when you go down like that, you're probably going about
probably
100.
just fucking felt like that.
That's what it felt like.
And then all the lights went out.
Yeah.
Oh, Tanya and Klaus are here.
I was just talking about you earlier.
How you guys been?
How y'all doing?
Yeah, Mango says giant sturgeon. Like on the Simon Whistle show, they were joking about maybe it was the Kraken.
Giant sturgeons and Krakens. Got them.
I mean,
yeah.
Who knows? It might be one down there. I don't know. Yeah. It's kind of deep. So I will say that there is no one single consensus about what happened. And like I said, we'll probably never know. I think the most likely scenario is like a combination of factors. I don't think the ship shoaled. It doesn't seem to me like there was any damage to the hull or any damage to the shoal for that matter. So that probably wasn't a factor. But the ship was crippled, and they probably thought they were going to make it, and then these waves came and fucked them over. Now, I will note, though, and this isn't the first time that this happened, because like I said, I know that there is some argument, or like some people say that, the ship broke in half on the surface. And like I said, that's not crazy because that did happen, like, alarmingly, a high number of times. One of these, this isn't the only instance, but there was a ship called the SS Daniel J. Morrell, and that actually sank in similar circumstances, except in Lake Huron, not Lake Superior. And it was also in November, but November of 1966, so about 10 years before the Fitzgerald. Weather conditions were comparable, not quite as bad, but it was like a really bad storm, gale force winds, and stuff like that. But in the Morrell's case, the ship broke in half while it was still on the surface, and most of the crew actually at least had time to jump off. Like, that helped. It didn't help. In that case, like, there was also 29 crew members on that. 28 of them died. One man did survive. The crazy thing about this really struck me, was that, and this is one of the reasons that I don't think that the Fitzgerald broke apart on the surface, because the survivor of the Morrell said that the ship broke in half. People were jumping off and freaking out, and the water was freezing cold. They drowned or froze to death or whatever. He got out, but he said he got out, I think he was in a lifeboat or life jacket or whatever, and he saw another ship, and he was like, oh, another ship, and then he realized it was the front half of his ship. Yeah. It was still moving, because the engine was still going. Yeah. So when they found that wreckage, it was, way far apart, because it kept on trucking, for a little while. The back half, was sunk, and then it kept going for a little while.
I thought the propellers were in the back.
Yeah, but the engine, I don't know. They just said
maybe it breaks apart.
Yeah, part of it kept going.
Momentum of the front, it keeps going.
Yeah, part of it kept going.
Yeah, okay.
And he thought it was a different ship for a second because it was storming and he couldn't really see. So he thought it was another ship, and he's like, "Oh, that's half of my ship."
Yeah.
He did live, but he was the only one.
Yeah, when they break apart at the surface, the two halves of the ship are fucking far apart on the bottom when they find them.
But I will note that ship, at the time that it sank in 1966, was already 60 years old. And as I said, a lot of the ships that broke in half on the surface tended to use an older tempering process for the steel, which made it more brittle. Because like I said, the Morrell was not the only one that broke in half like that. They said, like I said, it wasn't common, but it wasn't unheard of that ships would just they would just crack in half, because it was like a wave would hit it wrong and it would just snap in half like that. So it did happen, but I don't think that happened. And also, if you look at the pictures and the drawings from the Fitzgerald, it's not a clean break. It looks wrenched, where it came apart. And also, there's a big section in the middle of the Fitzgerald that is just disintegrated. It's 200 feet.
That's because it accordioned and it all fucking splayed out because it front hit, pow, and it blew out.
And then it seemed like it kind of went like that. Yeah. It seemed like this part went down and then that part went down. Like that.
Well, it can kind of twist because
that's what I mean. It looked kind of twisted to me, because the back half is kind of not completely upside down, but almost. The front half is almost upright.
Well, the front and the back are going to have two different weights. Yeah, because one's got cargo in it, one's got this, so there's going to be some twisting involved once the impact happens. Pow! It's accordioning, and the center part's going to explode out like an accordion. That's what it'll look like.
That's what it looks like to me.
Yeah. It hit when it broke apart when it hit the bottom.
Yeah. I mean, even all the reports said that too.
Yeah.
And like I said, it wasn't made the same way as some of the older ships that broke in half on the surface, because like I said, that did happen. I also want to mention, this is one that the Ask a Mortician, Caitlin Doherty, brought up on her show, because like I said, she's a mortician, so she kind of talks about all the bodies that are down there. And like I said, it's about freezing down there, about 32 degrees. And so she's like, that's the temperature we keep bodies at. You know what I mean? You keep them in the refrigerator.
And Grandpa said there's no bacteria down there either.
Yeah, it's really deep and really cold. So it's just so the bodies are generally perfectly preserved. And so she talked about this one, and they actually showed a little bit of footage of it too. It was pretty fucking creepy. There's a ship called the SS Kamloops, and that was a Canadian lake freighter. And it sank in Lake Superior in 1927.
Yeah.
And in 1928, here's another thing that's creepy about this before I get to the ghost thing. But a year later, like after the ship sank. There was a trapper who was working around there, and he found a legit message in a bottle. And the message was from a woman named Alice Betteridge. And she had been a stewardess on the ship, and she survived the sinking, but then she ended up like on some little island or something, like she couldn't get off or whatever. And she starved to death. And she had written this note to say, like, I'm the last one left alive, freezing and starving to death on Isle Royale in Lake Superior. I just want Mom and Dad to know my fate. That's what the note said.
Damn, she starved to death out there?
Yeah.
How long was she out there?
A year. Well, I don't know. They found it. They found the note a year later.
Wow.
Like in a bottle. So, now they didn't actually know where the wreckage was for about 50 years. But then in 1977, they found the wreck, like just northwest of Isle Royale, which they now call Kamloops Point, in honor of the ship. Because it was divers were looking for it, and they found it. And they found it in about 260 feet of water. And, like, there's cargo all around the wreck site and everything like that. And there are still bodies. And the one that they kind of... She didn't show the whole thing. Like, you could just kind of see the legs, like, in the footage. But there's this guy, and he's, like, kind of lodged under the stairs, like, in the engine room. And he's all preserved, and they call him Old Whitey.
Well, there's one that I've seen where
and they said, and a lot of divers that go down there because everybody wants to go see. Like, you're not supposed to, because like I said, it's a grave site.
They do.
But they say, ooh, they go down there and like they see like a ghost guy, like this old lady, like following them.
Like one of the captains on one of the sunken ships, and he's like still there in the bridge, and you can see his face. He looks like mold, but he's still sitting there.
That's so fucking creepy to me. That they're just like down there.
Yeah.
Just think about that when you're laying in bed tonight.
You think little fish and crabs and shit would eat them, but it's fresh water, so I guess they don't have.
And it's cold as shit down there.
It's cold, so I guess they're not there.
It's just kind of like, so weird. I guess not. And like I said, there's not really any bacteria down there, so they don't really rot.
Some wild shit.
Yeah, like I said, in the footage that I saw of Old Whitey, like you could just kind of see his legs, like coming at you. Like all you could see was like
these
metal
pants and his
stairs.
Shoes and all that?
You couldn't really tell if they were pants or shoes, but like they call him Old Whitey because it's all white. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it looks like all the color was leached out.
Yeah.
But
so you can't even tell if it's pants or legs?
No, I couldn't tell if it was pants.
Just
or
legs. It was absurd, huh?
Yeah.
Weird.
It was just because it's underwater.
I would think I'd be able to tell if it was pants or legs.
Well, it's like I don't know. It's like underwater, and it was kind of like under. He's kind of wedged under like the stairs. You know.
Okay.
What I mean?
I have to see the photo to know what you're talking about.
Yeah, like there's a little bit of footage of it that he took, but like some people want to go down there and see him, but he's like the most famous corpse, I guess, like down there. Like I said, technically, these wrecks, if they still have bodies in them, which a lot of them do, you're not really supposed to go down there because it's like desecrating a gravesite, right? Like if you dive around the Fitzgerald without a permit, then you can get a huge fine.
Bertie's asking if you like the Gordon Lightfoot song. You guess you haven't been watching this show.
Yeah, well, he just got here, I think. Yeah, just got here. Yeah, I love that song. Like I said, that was when I was little. That was the first thing that got me interested in this was the song, because I was about 3 when the song came out, and I remember hearing it on the radio, and I really liked it because it was spooky and it was about death and stuff. Which even when I was a little kid, I was just like, ooh, like I was pretty morbid. Still am. You know what I mean? But I was then too.
Yeah, Klaus, do you know this song, Klaus?
The Wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald.
Wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald. Yeah, that's what we're talking about. The
actual
wreck of the Edmund
that
Fitzgerald
inspired
that song. Gordon Lightfoot.
Yeah,
it's a great sea song, even though it's not about the saltwater sea. It's about freshwater sea.
Yeah, essentially an inland sea.
An inland sea.
It's a lake.
It's called the Great Lakes. It's above Michigan, in between Michigan and Canada.
Lake Superior.
Yeah, it's a big fucking lake.
I think Lake Michigan is the only one that's entirely in the U.S., right? Like the other ones are half in U.S. and half in Canada.
Yeah, it's dangerous out there, man. Bad weather, cold as fuck, hurricane force winds. They got sturgeon up there big enough to swallow a man whole. It's a freshwater fish. That's how big they get.
Yeah, like I said.
It's like a freshwater ocean.
I always thought, I knew there was like big fish in like rivers and shit. But until I watched Jeremy Wade on River Monsters, I didn't realize how fucking honking big some of those fucking fish can
Yeah,
get.
they got freshwater
He
fish.
caught some
Huge.
fucking catfish that I was just like horrified
Catfish
when
big
he pulled
enough
them out.
Catfish big enough to eat a man.
I was like, that could fucking eat you. It's gigantic.
Yeah.
It's the craziest shit ever.
There
And
are
he's like,
many-
and they probably used to get bigger because, you know, now that's like a lot more people living around, more fishing and stuff.
Yeah, they're fishing more with reels and shit.
So it's like they probably don't have as much food as
There
they used
were
to.
medieval European woodcuts of vegetables and a cow, and then next to it what looks like a catfish. And the catfish and the cow are the same size. And we always assumed that, well, these are medieval people. They're just
Exaggerating.
exaggerating. They're just
For an
trying to
effect.
show you what it was. But no, probably not. What would happen is that the medieval Europeans didn't have fishing rods. They just had nets. And there's limits to what you could do. And we know that sometimes when they would fish, they would drain ponds. They just go in there and fucking grab huge fucking fish. So that was the best way they could fish with the technology that they had. And it seems to be in the medieval era, before fishing rods and fishing reels, they would sometimes drain these ponds, and you'd have a catfish in there that was 80 years old, 100 years old, and it's almost the size of a cow. No fucking joke. And what's his name? What was his name? Fucking the guy we were just talking about. The guy from River
Jeremy
Monsters.
Wade.
Jeremy Wade was catching catfish that were damn near almost that big.
Now I kind of want to watch that show again.
Yeah. He was like, maybe, this catfish here might be 50 years old. How big would it be if it was 100 years old? Because there doesn't seem to be any maximum age limit on things like catfish and alligators. Alligators seem to be immortal. The older they are, the bigger they get. And they get so big, and they're just as lively at 120 years old as they are when they're newborn. It just seems to be they get so big that they can't eat enough to keep themselves alive.
That's probably
Because you
what
can't
it is.
find enough in nature.
Yeah, because the bigger you get, like
Bigger
the,
you get, more
the
food you
higher
need.
your calorie
Needs
are.
So back in the age of the dinosaur, I would imagine that an alligator could fucking get all the food it needed to live to be 130, 150 years old.
Did you see that
Get huge.
that the longest lived that they know of land animal, that tortoise,
Yeah.
just died? He was like 195 or something.
195 for a turtle. Yeah.
Like one of those big land tortoises.
Yeah.
Poor guy.
So I think alligators are the same way, because we found ancient alligator fossils and they're fucking huge. Huge.
And they're scary enough at the size they are
Yeah.
now. I can't imagine.
Yeah.
Jesus
So
Christ.
It
They're
may,
terrifying.
so we would say, well, that's an ancient species of alligator. It may not be. That might be the same
I don't think
species
they've
of
changed
alligator.
all that much,
That
to be
thing
honest with you.
That alligator might be 200 years old. But they would never get that old today. As soon as you got big like that, you'd get noticed and you'd get killed.
Yeah.
But not in a dinosaur
Or
era.
like I said, there's just not enough food around.
Not enough food. They can't get that big.
Yeah.
You have to be eating protein constantly.
Because before there was people like hogging everything.
Yeah. Well,
Or
now
hunting
we
everything.
call the Earth a habitable planet. Okay. But in the era of the dinosaur, it was super habitable.
Yeah.
It was even better. You could have huge animals. Huge. We're catching the end part of it. It's not as habitable as it used to be. And it had a high CO2 content, which meant the plants were just fucking growing like crazy.
As were the bugs.
And the bugs. And all the plant-eating animals were fucking growing like crazy. And it was hot. And because you had all those plant eaters, you had a bunch of meat eaters to eat those plant eaters. And they got big. So all this bullshit about CO2 content destroying the planet, no. High CO2 content will make it a jungle. A very hot jungle. And then you'll have a bunch of meat eaters. That's the way it was in the dinosaur era. It had a lot more CO2. It's just that humans wouldn't like it. It'd be too hot. It'd be 130 degrees.
Yeah, it's not really.
With 100% humidity.
It's not ideal for us.
No, not
obviously.
ideal for us, no. But it'd be 130 degrees, fucking 100% humidity, constantly raining. Constantly raining. Everything was a fucking rainforest.
Everywhere will be like Florida in August.
Worse. It'd be like the Amazon basin.
And no one wants that.
It'd be like the Amazon basin. Yeah.
There'd
be no poles.
Klaus says cowfish, no catfish. Catfish.
A catfish, bitch.
Catfish, because they have those.
Yeah, they got the big whiskers.
Little barbs.
The poison fins. Yeah, catfish.
Yeah, you don't want to get stunk by stuff.
They're delicious. It's a
they do taste very good.
It's a primitive ass fish. The meat of a catfish kind of tastes a lot like eel. It's kind of a soft, flavorless fish. It's really good when you deep fry it. Eat it with ketchup. It's a southern staple.
Good on a sandwich.
Good on a sandwich. Catfish. All through the whole American continent. North, South, and Central America.
And like I said, some of them get real big.
Some of them get huge.
Some of them in rivers get so big that they could eat a man. Legitimately eat a person.
Yeah.
Like they don't have teeth. Well, they kind of do.
It's like sandpaper.
But it's like sandpaper. It's like they have these big gaping mouths.
Yeah, some of them get big enough where they can fucking swallow a human.
Yeah. Well, and even if they weren't quite that big, they could still like grab your arm and drag you under the fucking water and drown you. So, which amounts to the same thing. You're still dead.
Catfish.
So obviously there were a lot of changes after this disaster. One of which was improved hatch inspections. Because like I said, they thought maybe the hatches hadn't been clamped down adequately. I don't know if that's the case. I think probably the weight of the water collapsed them. You know, it's possible maybe a couple of the clamps. Because like I said, I saw how it was done. It's each hatch, there was 21 of them. And there were like a whole bunch, like kind of a big C clamp, you know what I mean? Like a big heavy duty one. But there was like a whole bunch of them, like every few feet or whatever. And they were easy to clamp. They, just put them on the thing and then you just clunked a lever down like that and it closed it. Is it possible a couple of them weren't closed all the way or like the crew got lazy? I mean, it's possible, but it's just kind of like, I probably feel like not, you know what I mean? I kind of feel like just the weight of the water combined with already the ship being crippled in other ways probably just collapsed some of the hatch covers. I don't think that that them not being clamped down enough was like the main issue. But because of the report that came out saying that was a possibility, obviously they stepped up inspections of that, which not a bad thing. Like I said, they also kind of did better weather routing, better radar communications upgrades, trackers on the ships, like not letting people go out in the weather, like, erring on the side of safety rather than being like, oh, it'll probably be okay, you know what I mean, kind of thing, like they used to do. Also not really doing that, changing the load restrictions, because like I said, the Fitzgerald was, frankly kind of overloaded, even though it was allowed, because they thought it would be okay. Like, I think that probably contributed, so they didn't really let them do that anymore. So like I said, even though the Great Lakes in general have had thousands and thousands and thousands of shipwrecks, like I said, I've seen estimates anywhere from 3,000 to 6,000 to 10,000 shipwrecks over the centuries, because the Great Lakes have been used for shipping for, forever. So obviously and the weather is terrible, like especially in the wintertime. So obviously there's going to be, lots and lots of shipwrecks, and there are, and a lot of people have died in there. But because Gordon Lightfoot wrote the song about it, which actually went to number 1 in Canada, it went to number 2 in the USA in 1975, 1976, and was a big hit, kind of and almost now is kind of like a folk song, like an American folk song. Like I said, I've seen lots of covers of it. So I think that kind of immortalized this particular wreck, and like Tom said, maybe is like a representative of all the other wrecks too, because like I said, there were a whole bunch. Matter of fact, I think there was one, I can't remember all the details exactly, I just heard somebody mention it like on another documentary. They said there was a horrible storm in, I want to say it was like early 20th century, like maybe 1915 or something like that, and they said there was a storm that was so bad that like 47 ships sank. You know what I mean? Like this, and the same storm. You know what I mean? So it's no stranger to bad weather or shipwrecks. That's for sure. So yeah, as we mentioned earlier, every year on the anniversary, they have all of the, at the Great Lakes Shipwreck Museum, which is Whitefish Point, which is about 17 miles from where the ship went down. That was where the ship was heading for when it sunk. They have a memorial service every year where they have like all the relatives and stuff of the dead, and they come and ring the bell 29 times and read off all of their names. Like I said, since 2023, they ring the bell 30 times because Gordon Lightfoot died in 2023, and he is now considered an honorary member of the crew. So they ring a bell for him as well because he's the one that immortalized them. So yeah, like I said, I don't know why this kind of stuff fascinates me so much. Like I said, I'm not a mariner. I'm not a boat person. I grew up on the ocean, but I don't like boats. I don't want to be out in the ocean. I don't want to be out in the middle of the Great Lakes. I don't want anything to do with it. Thank you.
It's a North American Gothic song.
But for some reason, like this song creepy, fascinated me when I was a little kid because it was so creepy. And then when I learned about the actual thing, like I got really interested in like just shipwrecks, ghost ships, like all that kind of stuff. And just the idea of all of these people still being down there. Like, you know where they are, but like they don't go down and get them. It's like too deep and too cold. And like I said, I feel like
that's where they need to be.
In mariner tradition, it's kind of like that's where they would have wanted. And that's what their families said too. It's like that's where they would have wanted to stay.
They're with the ship and the crew. They're as a unit.
Yeah, and like they're still there. Yeah. So it's like, but just if you lay in bed at night in the dark and like think about just that quiet, cold water down there. Yeah, and just all those dead people just kind of hanging out down there. I mean, that's like, there's something really fucking creepy about that. Like no one can see them, but they're down there. Yeah,
Klaus from Norway says, and we call them fisk.
Yeah,
I mean fish. It's funny you say that because when I was going to school in Sao Paulo, Brazil, there was a Swedish girl I went to school with. Her last name was Fisk. Her name was Camilla Fisk.
That's not an uncommon last name. Yeah, I've known a couple people with that last name.
I didn't know it meant fish though.
Well, yeah, because don't they have, what is it?
Fish is probably a big deal.
Lutefisk or whatever that stuff is?
Camilla Fisk.
Which I can't remember exactly.
She had a sister. I'm trying to remember what her name was. They were cute. She was a brunette. Her sister was a blonde. And they didn't wear bras. That was a weird thing. They just fucking...
I love that was the one thing you remember.
They were fucking hot, man. They didn't wear bras.
After their names.
The whole fucking school was
they didn't wear bras.
Them hot Swedish chicks not wearing bras. They'd bend over and pick up the books. If you were standing behind them, you see the titties hanging from
every dude would be
like, man, fucking girls aren't wearing bras, man. They didn't shave their legs either. Fucking hairy legs and shit.
Okay, well that's a ding against them then, I guess. Maybe they didn't wear bras.
They bleached their leg hair blonde.
I've heard of people doing that.
That's what they were doing. That was in the 80s.
Yeah, that's kind of an 80s thing to do.
Yeah. And they look like...
It seems like so much trouble.
They look like some out of Bananarama. They had the hair and shit, and the fucking clothes. They look like some out of Bananarama. They were like new wave looking...
Yeah.
New wave looking Swedish girls.
Did they wear overalls?
That kind of shit.
They wore that kind of shit?
Big baggy pants.
Like in the Cruel Summer video.
Yeah, it's like that big baggy pants and fucking teased hair with bows and fucking short shirts that stopped right underneath the boob and shit. And there's no bras there. It was hot. Fucking it was hot. Yeah, yeah. Fucking funny.
Oh my god. Oh, now see, Zach says there was an April Fool's thing I saw today that Jonathan, the 200-something-year-old tortoise from the Galapagos, died. Was that April Fool's joke? Because I just saw it, and I was like, oh, that's a bummer, and then, I didn't really think about it. But then when you were talking about alligators, I just remembered it. That'd be cool if that was an April Fool's joke, because is he really dead? I hope not. I love that his name is Jonathan.
Tanya and Klaus are laughing over that. What's that smell? Her name was Fisk, Camilla Fisk.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to remember what her sister's name was. That doesn't matter. They were only like a year apart. Those two.
Gramther says no bleach was involved. That was just Nordic white leg hair.
No, I don't know because Camilla was a natural brunette. Her sister was blonde though, but no, they you could tell they were bleaching.
Their leg hair had roots.
You could see that they were. You could see they were bleaching their leg hair. I think they were bleaching their leg hair because Camilla was a brunette.
Bleaching your leg hair seems like more trouble than shaving it.
It wasn't because they weren't shaven. It wasn't very like thick, and you know what I mean. It wasn't like thick hairs or anything. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was just like fuzz, but you could tell they were bleaching it. And I think they had underarm hair too, if I remember, but not a lot. They were teenagers. They were in high school.
Yeah.
So I think they could get away with it back then, but I don't know what happened to them.
He's gonna look him up on Facebook.
Look him up. How's he shave that shit? Yeah. They used to hang out with a Dutch girl. She was cute too. Her name was Manon. Manon Dalderop was her name. She was from Holland.
You're pretty good. I don't remember anybody's name from
yeah.
school.
Oh no, those were some of the hotties of the school that I went with. And like I said, it was fucking 86 and 87, and then everybody looked like they were new wave girls out of like Bananarama. That's what they looked like. The girls from Europe looked like that.
Yeah.
And they wore big, baggy shit. They were skinny, but they wore big, baggy.
Only skinny people.
Only
can get
skinny,
away with
cute
wearing
girls look good in that shit.
Big baggy shit.
Yeah, yeah.
Nobody else can get away with it. It just makes you look fatter.
Big baggy pants with the fucking legs rolled up to like right underneath the knee, and tennis shoes and shit. With big teased hair, bows in it and shit. Lipstick.
Well, yeah.
Yeah. They always look different, But like if you look at an '80s '80s Bananarama video, that's what they look like Cruel Summer, look like something like that. I like that.
Zach says a brunette Swede sorcery. Yeah, Klaus says Tanya is Swedish. So you know what I was kind of curious about the Wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald song. Was how in the beginning of the song, the line is the lake they call Gitchigumi. And I knew that he had got that from the Longfellow poem, Song of Hiawatha. But I was kind of like, do Native Americans, did they really call it that? So I kind of looked it up. It's actually Gitchigami. But I was like, well, close enough. I guess Longfellow fucked it up because he called it Gitchigumi in Song of Hiawatha, which was 18 blah, 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 something. The poem came out. And that's where Gordon Lightfoot got it from. He got it from the Longfellow poem. So it's not bullshit. It's just slightly pronounced slightly differently. Because I've always been curious about that. Because I was like, did they really call it that?
Yeah. Grandpa's asked me what was better to date, the Swedish girls or Brazilian girls. Oh, no, Brazilian girls. Hands down.
I knew he was going to
Hands down. The fucking Swedish dudes. Because we had Swedish guys there, too. They all had Brazilian girlfriends. They're like, no. Brazilian girls. They're Latin. They're just a lot more fun, friendly. They weren't judgy at all. They liked to like party. And they're a lot more like American girls. A lot more like American. European girls of that era were, I will call them, they were pretty, but they were
reserved.
Cold. Cold. They were just kind of cold. Yeah. Like you were not good enough. Nobody was good enough. You know what I mean? Just were super like, they weren't very expressive or emotional, really.
A lot of people think South Americans are too expressive.
There's not a big difference between here's the thing. Brazilian women are legendary. Some of my first girlfriends were Brazilian. But there's not a big difference between a Brazilian girl and an American girl.
Yeah, I feel like the American continent is...
Yeah, the whole American continent is kind of like
fairly similar.
It's, yeah. If you
slight variations.
If you use Europe and, say, Asia as a comparison, no, Central, South, and North American people are real similar. There's not a big difference. The British there, I had British friends when I was living overseas in Brazil, but there was a big difference between British guys and American guys, even in those days. In my apartment complex, I used to hang out with the Riley brothers now and then. It was Tom Riley and his brother, his little brother. I forgot what his name was. I'll remember it in a minute.
Nigel?
No. They were cool. We could talk about music, but they just weren't fucking outgoing, and they were constantly segregating themselves away from Brazilians. They were in this British colony, basically, in England. and they all went to the same high school. It was called St. Mary's. It was a fucking private Catholic school that they went to. And their parents wouldn't let them go anywhere. And they couldn't, like, fraternize with Brazilians because, oh my God, they're South Americans, what the fuck. And I went to their school a couple times. Tom took me there. And one time I went there, I met the other British people there, and fucking, a chick there fucking slipped me her phone number. Her name was Wendy. And I talked to her a couple times, and fucking Tom fucking told her that I didn't like her, that she was a fat cow.
Maybe he liked her.
And I was like, dude. And
that was a dick move.
It's a dick move. I didn't say that. What are you talking about? Fucking. But I couldn't date her because her parents wouldn't let her go anywhere. They thought Brazil was too dangerous. So I could only go to her house. And I wasn't going to play that game. I had all these Brazilian girls fucking calling me, who didn't even know me,
and they could do whatever.
They just knew my apartment number for the fucking house, the house that I was in, because it was in a condominium complex, and we had an internal phone, and they could just fucking enter star and then your house number, and they could call your house. So I was getting all these calls from all these Brazilian girls. I was in high school, and I was like, "What the fuck is this?" And all these girls were calling me. And I couldn't speak Portuguese. They didn't speak Portuguese
at first.
And then I started learning Portuguese. And it turned out fucking two of those girls that kept calling me, I went to school with, and they spoke English. I told her that story already.
But they just spoke Portuguese on the phone because they thought that
they thought that I would understand.
That he didn't understand.
And they were like, hey.
But after a while, he did understand what they were saying because he was learning. He had a tutor.
They didn't know that I had a professora particular, which is a fucking tutor. And within 5 months, I spoke Portuguese. So I could understand what they were saying.
And they're like,
Yeah, all right.
And he said something back to him in Portuguese.
I would talk to him in English. I would say something to him in English, and they would answer in Portuguese. And I said, oh, okay, yeah. And we were having a two-way conversations. I understand what you're talking about. I know who you are. And they hung up. It was two of the girls that I went to school with. But you see, here was the problem. I was in 9th grade. Those were 8th graders.
Yeah.
So you couldn't.
That's not done.
You can't do that.
They're babies.
You can't do that. Those are babies. Even though they were probably my age or 6 months younger, maybe. But I knew who they were. But high schoolers couldn't fucking have anything to do with middle schoolers. You crazy?
Yeah, I mean, I think even now that would be weird.
You're right.
Ben says, some guys like fat cows. That's true.
Wendy was not a fat cow.
I know, but it's like...
She was what you would call today thick. You know what I mean?
Which you like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Granther says, word on the street is Brazilian girls can be a bit dramatic. True.
Oh, yeah, but drama, man. Latin drama. All Latins are drama. But drama's good.
They're kind of known for it.
Yeah, drama. They love drama. But drama's a game. It's just because they love you.
Depends on what kind of drama.
It's just that they love you.
Some of it, I mean,
they love you.
I get that it's like some of it. You don't want somebody
it's performative.
You don't want somebody that's just like...
Yeah.
monotone and like
no, they love you. So they're gonna put on a show.
But you don't want somebody that's manufacturing drama all the time either.
Right.
You know what I mean? I've known a couple people like that in my time, and they're exhausting to be around.
No, Latins are awesome. They have a lot. They have a lot in common with Americans from the South. It's a very similar mentality.
That's pretty funny.
Yeah.
I love how even talking about shipwrecks, we end up talking about boobs.
Boobs. Swedish boobs. Swedish braless boobs from the 80s.
That just cracked me up that the second thing you remembered about them after their names was that they didn't wear bras.
I was 16.
Yeah.
Fucking, they're not wearing bras.
It made an impression, clearly.
Nipples and everything.
He's still remembering it like 40 years later.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
They were hot, man. They were hot, but they were kind of unobtainium. Yeah, you couldn't really obtain it. You'd have to fight to get that. Why would you want to fight to get that when you got all these Brazilian chicks just fogging up on you?
Yeah, it's like,
Yeah, even the Swedish guys weren't going out.
You had an abundance.
What are you talking about?
So it's like, no one was desperate.
Yeah.
Ben said, what do you think about this young woman who tied up and tried to kill her Tinder date? I hadn't heard about that.
Haven't heard about that one. Maybe we might do a show.
That sounds like some crazy shit.
Yeah.
Ben said, I think I'd still take a chance with her. I guess some dudes would. I don't know, man. I think that would be a red flag big time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There's some crazy bitches out there, you know what I mean? There's crazy dudes out there and there's crazy bitches out there. You gotta watch your ass, you know what I mean?
I didn't know that Tanya was Swedish. I thought she was Norwegian, just like you, Klaus.
Yeah. So.
Yeah.
I mean, to us, there's not a big difference, but, you know, I'm sure y'all have...
No, I don't think the Norwegians and the Swedes consider themselves to be the same.
No, of course they don't.
No.
You know what I mean? It's just kind of like, well, my ex-husband was Welsh, and he used to get really pissed when, like, people said he was English. Because, like, England and Wales are two completely different countries.
Yeah.
And they really don't like each other, generally. Yeah. And they don't like being mistaken for one another.
Yeah.
It's kind of a thing. I don't know if it's still like that, but that's how it was like in the 90s and the 2000s. Klaus says, be right back. Just got to listen to some Fear Factory.
Yeah.
All right.
We're towards the end of the show anyway.
Yeah. Like I said, we got to the end. But yeah, if you're not from the United States, like I said, especially if you're not from the Great Lakes area, this might not be that familiar to you. But like I said, I kind of feel like it has kind of passed into legend, mainly because of the song, but also just because of the mysterious details about like how it happened and speculating about that. And like I said, thinking about all those people like still like underneath the lake. And they're never going to get them. They're just going to be there, like, forever. Which, like, really freaks me out. Like, I don't know why that creeps me out so much. But there's a lot of really good documentaries about this. My favorite ones that I saw, there was one, the channel's called The Lore Lodge. And they did a really good one that was hour and a half, something like that. And then there was one called, like, By the Part-Time Explorer. And that was almost 2 hours. I watched that one last night. Tom watched part of that one with me. And that one was, like, super in depth and had like a lot of footage and audio from the radios, like talked to showed footage of Bernie Cooper, the other captain, like from the Anderson, that saw a lot of that happen. And so yeah, it was like really interesting if you're into like maritime history at all. Like there's a lot of really good shit out there about this. And if you've never heard the Gordon Lightfoot song, please listen to it. It's a great song.
Yeah, great song. That song would wrap this show up.
If we
go listen to the Gordon Lightfoot record, the Edmund Fitzgerald.
It still kind of makes me choke up a little bit.
Yeah.
A little bit. It's a sad
song.
It's sad.
Yeah. It's epic though.
Yeah. Like I said, it's a ballad. You know what I mean? But like, yeah, and it's kind of spooky because especially if you know what really happened, like it's really creepy, like to listen to. All right, so I guess we're going to wrap it up for this evening because it's a little bit past 10 p.m. Ben says, did you ever do a show on the final Meriwether-Clark expedition to find the lost Welsh miners in Florida? I don't think we ever did, honestly. But I'm going to write that down because that might be something we might want to do. So I will write that down. Whoops. And then I'll put it on my list tomorrow. Expedition Florida. Otherwise tomorrow I'll be like, what the fuck did I write that down for? You know what I mean? Sometimes I forget the next day. All right, so we're going to do the sidetrack show on Friday night as usual. Might have to cut it a little bit short because we got to go to Abyss that night. But we can do like hour and a half, couple hours before we go, I reckon. Because Abyss is this Friday, right?
Yeah.
Isn't this weekend is Easter too, isn't it? I forgot that it was this soon.
Yeah. Gotta get some Easter candy.
Or we could wait till the day after and get it half off.
Yeah. You always wait the day after and get that shit a lot cheaper.
I mean, you know what I mean? That's what people do with Valentine's Day. Like, day after Valentine's Day. It's like, woo, all the candy's 50% off. You know what I mean? That's what smart people do. You don't need it on the day.
Like the day after Thanksgiving, go down and go get you the turkeys. It's like 20 cents a pound.
Yeah, they're like, just take them, please.
Here, get rid of these turkeys.
I'll
have like 3 of them down in the fucking
We still have a
bunch
right now. Frozen turkeys. We still have a bunch of frozen turkeys. But like I said, every now and then you just pop one in the oven and roast it for a few hours, and man, that shit's real good. That's real good. All right, so we're going to wrap it up, as I said. Hopefully you guys can join us for the Sidetrack show on Friday night, our pre-Abyss party. That's what we're going to do. Going to have just one drink, maybe, and talk for a couple hours before we go out. But,
a couple hours, maybe an hour or so. Maybe an hour.
Yeah, we'll see.
Hey, that's a full show for a lot of channels.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. All right, so hopefully you guys enjoyed the show. Like I said, this was a topic I'd been wanting to do for a long time because I'm like really interested in this kind of stuff. So hopefully you guys were as interested in it as I was. I thought it was fascinating. But yeah, have a good rest of your night, you guys. Have a good day tomorrow, and we will see you guys again on Friday night.